Chapter 2496. But DMO Xian's hand became more honest. Little Luo, after a long time, the man slowly let her go. He murmured Yiqing Luo's name as he rested his head on her neck. Sang Xian's voice was low and hoarse as it revealed infinite affection. I miss you so much. The man didn't conceal his feelings at all, which made Yiqing Luo unable to raise her temper. She blamed him for kissing her till she couldn't breathe when she just woke up. She snorted angrily, showing her delicate side. She slowly raised her weak hands and wrapped them around his sturdy waist. I missed you too. The man's arms around her body tightened. His face rubbed against her neck. His warm breath slowly awakened Yiqing Luo's sensitivity. They embraced for a moment. In DMO Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo felt especially at ease. His body also gradually relaxed. Have you settled everything in the upper realm? You won't leave, right? She nestled in his embrace, her voice soft and coquettish. You stinky, heartless man. You abandoned me for half a month. We're separated by a great plain. Even if I missed you, I couldn't contact you. The hard body of the man who was carrying her suddenly stiffened. Yiqing Luo acutely felt it. She bit her lower lip and placed her hands on his chest. He pushed it slightly. The man's head left her shoulder. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and stared at him without blinking. You still want to leave? DMO Xian's fingertips twined around a strand of her hair. He lowered his head and kissed her hair. I'm sorry. It was a tacit agreement. He would leave again. He would be lying if he said he wasn't sad. But looking at the fatigue in DMO Xian's brows, that face filled with longing, his eyes filled with tenderness. No matter how unhappy Yiqing Luo was, neither of them could bring themselves to be angry. She missed DMO Xian. How would DMO Xian not miss her? She believed that if it was possible, DMO Xian would absolutely want to stick together with her at any moment to become a conjoined twins. But he couldn't. He was not only the venerable sovereign of the Nirvana realm. There was also another layer, an even more noble identity. A long time ago, she had often heard people talking about it. The greater one's ability, the greater the responsibility. Although to DMO Xian, what happened to others had nothing to do with him. However, with his strength and status, he would not allow himself to be willful, even if it had nothing to do with him. I have to get involved too. Look at the tiredness in his eyes. Look at the dark circles under his eyes. It was clearly for his responsibility, so that he could meet her as soon as possible. That was why he was so desperate. How could she bear to blame DMO Xian? Her heart ached for DMO Xian. But in DMO Xian's eyes, that was Lil Luo. Er's silence was definitely because she was blaming him. Lil Luo, don't stay silent. Hit me if you're unhappy. I'll let you hit me. Don't ignore me. DMO Xian grabbed Yiqing Luo's little hand and swung it towards his face. DMO Xian, who had never coaxed a woman before. The DMO Xian who could flirt with Yiqing Luo in minutes. At this moment, he was like a child who had done something wrong, using such a childish method to coax Yiqing Luo. She was really angry at the bottom of her heart. At this moment, they would probably be so amused that they would vanish in a thin air. All right, stop fooling around. Yiqing Luo forcefully retracted her hand. How could she bear to hit him? Who asked me to choose such an outstanding man? What else can I do? Even if he's kneeling, I'll still pamper him. Yiqing Luo's words made DMO Xian stunned. Why do these words sound so strange? But her heart was filled with sweetness. Chapter 2497. Stop! Stop! Yiqing Luo raised her hand and covered the man's lips. The scorching lips were imprinted on her palm. The scorching sensation made her feel as though she had touched a burning flame. Her cheeks were once again dyed crimson red. Stop fooling around. Where are we now? Yiqing Luo glared at him coquettishly. Her brows were filled with a young lady's charm. Only in front of DMO Xian, and only DMO Xian alone, could see this Yiqing Luo. Ah Xian, do you know where we are? While Yiqing Luo was talking to Dmo Xian, she sized up the surroundings. As far as the eye could see, it was an empty piece of jade light. Apart from the jade green light, there was nothing else. Just as Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian and looked around, not sure if it was her misconception. Somehow, Dmo Xian's body stiffened slightly for a moment. She was stunned as she turned back to look at Dmo Xian in puzzlement. What she met was a pair of peach blossom eyes filled with warmth. His thin lips curved into an extremely shallow arc, and his gaze was deep and serene, as if he wanted to imprint her deeply into his mind. Yiqing Luo's heart had an inexplicable fluster. She instinctively grabbed Dmo Xian's collar tightly. Slender fingers hooked onto his. Xian, are you hiding something from me? She understood her man too well. Dmo Xian must have something to hide from her. Moreover, this matter was related to her and this piece of jade light world. Dmo Xian didn't answer. Under the light, the man's deep and handsome face revealed a hazy and dreamy brilliance. She couldn't see clearly the expression on his face. The only thing she could see was the deep affection and pampering in his eyes. Xian, not waiting for a reply, Yiqing Luo's heart instantly panicked. The hand that held Dmo Xian tightened even more. After a long time, in the jade light, the man's magnetic voice rang beside her ear. Nothing. He spat out 2 words. Lowering his head, his warm breath slowly seeped into her earlobe. The young lady's petite body uncontrollably trembled slightly. Her grip on his collar loosened as well. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Dmo Xian gently held her hand as he explained in a gentle voice. His heart was beating normally. His voice was also very normal. It was as if that moment of shock and speechlessness was just an illusion. Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around his waist. She inhaled the sandalwood fragrance from his body. Only then did he slowly calm himself down. The 2 elders of the Bu family used their own lives to open the seal of the Miao tribe's forbidden land for you. Dmo Xian felt the breathing of the young lady in his arms, gradually becoming smoother, and between his brows, a trace of a relieved smile flashed past. His large palm gently patted the girl's delicate back. His eyes were quiet and unblinking, almost greedily looking at everything about her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened at the mention of the Bu family's 2 elders. Her little hands tightened as she clasped onto Dmo Xian's wrist and raised her head from his embrace. This is the inside of the seal? She remembered when the emerald light had covered the sky and covered the earth. Miao Yixiong shouted that the seal was unlocked. Following that, her consciousness was swallowed by the power of the seal. In the end, she seemed to have sensed Dmo Xian's arrival. Dmo Xian had rushed over in time to save her and even brought her to the inside of the seal. Chapter 2498. Yiqing Luo didn't understand the deeper meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. The next moment, she felt her body turning light. A heavy kiss landed on her lips. The man's breathing was heavy as he bit down harshly. Yiqing Luo frowned in pain as she raised her fist to push him. But before she could even raise her hand, the man had already loosened his grip on her. Lil Luo, wait for me to come back. A light and ethereal voice floated in his ears. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled as she steadied herself and immediately stretched out her hand to grab Dmo Xian. But there was only air in her hand. The jade-green light enveloped, and the man's purple robe was faintly discernible. His handsome face was filled with reluctance to part with her. Xian. Yiqing Luo grabbed Dmo Xian once again as her tone was anxious. But her hand couldn't touch Dmo Xian at all. As the jade-green light grew stronger, the man's figure started to dissipate. I miss you so. I will return to your side immediately. The last silent sentence was clearly transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. Xian. Xian. Yiqing Luo shouted Dmo Xian's name loudly. But what pounced forward was still air. The man's figure had completely disappeared before her eyes. Only a faint sandalwood fragrance was left, proving that he had indeed existed. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo stared blankly at the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. Her legs turned soft as she knelt on the ground. Her eyes were empty as she frowned, not understanding what was going on. Why? He was still fine earlier, telling each other how much they missed each other. He even passionately did that kind of thing. Why did it suddenly disappear? He said there was something important to her in this seal. But what was it? Could it be more important than him? Rumble. Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded in his ears. Following that, Yiqing Luo's body shook violently. The ground beneath her feet was shaking. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She immediately steadied herself as she surveyed the surroundings vigilantly. Under the boundless jade light, Yiqing Luo totally couldn't see what kind of earth-shaking and mountain-shaking scene was. She could feel the ground beneath her feet cracking open with a schwa, schwa, schwa sound. But even if he lowered his head to look, what entered his eyes was a green light. She felt like she was in a green space. He couldn't see heaven and earth. He couldn't see everything, but the cracking feeling under his feet was especially obvious. At the same time, one of her feet stepped on empty air and she staggered. She followed her instincts and moved her feet. Old man's song, just what is this place? While following the aura, she quickly avoided the area where the ground had split open while contacting Old Man's Song. However, her connection with Old Man's Song seemed to have been cut off. She couldn't sense the aura within the azure dew bracelet at all. Boom! Another dull rumble rang out. Compared to before, the tremor was even more intense. The rumbling seemed to come from under his feet. Yiqing Luo was swayed so much that she almost lost her footing, swaying left and right to maintain her own balance. Hiss! A piercing buzzing sound shook Yiqing Luo's eardrums. Her brain was pierced by waves of pain. Yiqing Luo's slender brows tightened as she felt the feeling of the ground splitting open. She leaped up and quickly rolled backwards. Bam! Her back bumped into something hard. That hard feeling, Yiqing Luo couldn't use words to describe. Chapter 2499. Damn it! What the hell was this place? Ah Xian, that bastard. After bringing her here, he disappeared on his own. Even if she were to meet with any opportunities here, he still had to make it clear to her. Now she was in a state of complete confusion. Yiqing Luo's eyebrows twitched in pain. She shifted her body and stretched out her hand to touch behind her. When she touched it, it was a hard and cold thing. It was very smooth, but at a distance there would be some bumps. Very hard, very hard. Yiqing Luo was confident that she could break a wall with one punch. But when she touched this thing, Yiqing Luo could conclude that this thing was even sturdier than those Supreme Being grade or God grade armors. Suddenly, that hard thing seemed to move. The ear-piercing buzz in her ears once again shook her eardrums. Hiss, hiss, an extremely close distance. Yiqing Luo felt that her eardrums were about to burst. She subconsciously raised her hand and covered her ears. But her hand, once that dog left that hard thing, her body suddenly felt light. Her feet seemed to have stepped on empty air and instantly fell down. F***K. This series of changes made Yiqing Luo unable to hold back and burst out a vulgar word. What a F***King husky. This was a piece of jade green space. She couldn't see anything clearly. She couldn't sense anything. She was completely unable to determine how long this kind of fall would last. She had just fallen into a 1,000-meter hole. Now it was here again, life or death unknown. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to complain or complain. She took a deep breath and forced herself to concentrate, gathering the profound energy into her legs, ready to land safely. Roar, roar, roar. An earth-shattering roar went straight to the 9 heavens. The familiar sound made Yiqing Luo's concentration stagnate. Chi-Chi, did she hear it wrongly? Why did she seem to hear Chi-Chi's tiger roar? Roar. As if responding to her words, the wild roar was heard once again. Following that, her body was caught by a ball of soft fur. Chi-Chi, is it really you? Yi-Ching Luo's hands hugged the soft thing beneath her, the familiar smell and touch. It was indeed Chi-Chi. Master, the childish voice was indeed Chi-Chi's voice. Yi-Ching Luo sat properly on Chi-Chi's back. Why did you come out? How is your body? Old Man Song said that you and Chi-Yin are asleep because you are evolving. What do you think? Chi-Chi, whom he had not seen for a long time, finally appeared in front of him again. Yi-Ching Luo was extremely touched. A piece of his heart was finally put down. Chi-Yin, it woke up too? We're all fine. It's all thanks to Master's heaven returning nether pill. Chi-Chi smiled and wagged his tail. We don't need little Chi here. Chi-Chi will protect Master. Yi-Ching Luo rubbed Chi-Chi's back. Chi-Chi, do you know what this place is? I don't know. Chi-Chi answered its master's question honestly. It carried Yi-Ching Luo on its back as it ran forward aimlessly and said, But here, there's a very familiar scent. If Chi-Chi didn't smell wrongly, Master will be able to see your new companion very soon. New companion? Chi-Chi's words made Yi-Ching Luo slightly stunned. In her mind, the image of Chi-Yin suddenly appeared. A thought gradually formed in her mind. Chapter 2500. She didn't know how long Chi-Chi had been running with her. Yi-Ching Luo only saw a piece of green in front of her. She didn't know where Chi-Chi had taken her. Master, do you feel it? Chi-Chi seemed to be very excited. Its tail kept swaying. The strength was so great that Yi-Ching Luo could feel the wind from the swaying tail. Yi-Ching Luo said that she didn't feel anything except the wind. Chi-Chi's mood suddenly lost a lot. You really don't feel it? Yi-Ching Luo facepalmed. What did Xiao Qi want her to feel? Could it be a call prompt? Chi-Chi leaped and seemed to be circling around something, striding its limbs again. Strange, how could Master not feel it? After several laps, Yi-Ching Luo expressed a face of confusion. You stupid tiger. A clear voice sounded out of thin air. Chi-Chi's tiger body shook. Little Chi-Chi. If you say Chi-Chi is stupid, Chi-Chi will. Chi-Chi's little voice was soft and cute. After holding it for a long time, Yi-Ching Luo thought that Chi-Chi would fight back with great lethality, only to hear Chi-Chi roaring angrily. Chi-Chi also wants to call you stupid bird. Yi-Ching Luo. My Chi-Chi is amazing, worthy of being her family's pure and lovely little thing. I said you were stupid. You still don't admit it? Chi-Yan's disdainful voice with arrogance. What do you want the ugly woman to feel? She is not a sacred beast. Yi-Ching Luo. She had already become her war pet. Could she show some respect to her as a war pet? Chi-Chi whispered, woo-woo, seemed to be very wronged by Chi-Yan's scolding. The woman who was ignored by the two sacred beasts cleared her throat and rubbed Chi-Chi's head with her little hand. Don't talk in riddles. What do I need to do? Let's hurry up. Listening to the conversation between Chi-Chi and Chi-Yin. Obviously, these two people knew where they were. Chi-Yin snorted. His tone was full of disgust. Stupid tiger, don't follow the ugly woman. Just throw her down. Chi-Yin didn't show up, still in the pet space. But just listening to its tone, Yi-Ching Luo could almost imagine the arrogant and disdainful look on Chi-Yan's face. Yi-Ching Luo expressed that as the owner of its Sundra war pet, it was really too sad. Throw her off? Was he going to enjoy the thrill of falling from a high altitude again and not knowing when he would land? Chi-Chi, don't be influenced by Chi-Ao-Jiao. My Chi-Chi loves you the most. Yi-Ching Luo was just about to hug Chi-Chi's neck to express Chi-Chi's gentleness and not to be in cahoots with a certain arrogant bird. However, before he could finish his words, her body felt light, and then she fell from the sky as she was familiar with it. Chi-Chi really threw her down from her back. Didn't you say not to learn bad things from Chi-Ao-Jiao? Why was Chi-Chi so obedient to Chi-Ao-Jiao? Yi-Ching Luo had yet to gather her profound energy again. Then, he felt a powerful force coming down on him. Her pupils reflected an extremely gorgeous green brilliance. Bang! That ray of jade light fiercely crashed onto Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo only felt a strong numbing pain all over her body. Her vision turned black and she fainted. Chi-Chi, who was standing by the side, stared at Yi Qing Luo, who was wrapped in a piece of jade light worriedly. The current Yi Qing Luo, suspended in midair. Numerous jade lights entangled her bit by bit. Chapter 25:01. It's all right, Qi Yin replied indifferently. If she can't even bear this bit of power, then what qualifications does she have to be her master? Chi-Chi's eyes widened as it shook its head in disapproval. Little Chi-Chi, what you said is wrong. No matter what master is, or how powerful she is Chi-Chi's master. It was not because of its master's ability that it became its master's battle pet. It really liked its master. It was willing to stay by its master's side and protect her. Qi didn't speak again for a moment. Chi was a little angry because of what Qi said earlier and didn't want to bother with Qi anymore. It stared at its master without blinking, like a knight guarding its master. Yi Qing Luo was in a daze. She only felt that there was a voice in her mind, constantly clamoring. She wanted to hear clearly whose voice it was. But that voice was illusory, and she couldn't hear clearly. The only thing she could be sure of was, it was that voice that kept calling her name. There seemed to be something in her chest, like a whirlpool, fiercely stirring. Following that, she felt as if something had surged into her body. Her whole body was swollen and painful. She groaned in pain. The clamoring in her mind became louder and noisier at this moment. What was that voice saying? Why did it keep calling her name? In a daze, Yi Qing Luo saw a dash of jade light flickering in front of her eyes. She frowned, trying to see more clearly, but she only saw that wisp of jade light turn into jade fog, slowly seeping into her heart. At the same time, a surge of majestic power, like an avalanche, filled her limbs and bones. The heaven and earth's spiritual qi crazily swam in her body. Ah! Yi Qing Luo cried out in pain from the impact of this surging power. The next moment, she suddenly opened her eyes. Her body was like a spring, sitting upright. The moment she opened her eyes, a ray of jade light shot out from her eyes. Master! Seeing Yi Qing Luo open her eyes, Chi immediately went forward, its tiger eyes looking at Yi Qing Luo. However, Yi Qing Luo didn't have the energy to answer it. The moment she opened her eyes, she noticed the changes in her body. She quickly sat down cross-legged. Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel the barrier of advancement. Ever since she advanced to the sky, profound realm, no matter how much heaven and earth spiritual energy she absorbed, no matter how fast her profound strength grew, she couldn't even advance. And this time, he had been stuck at the profound rank for so long. Finally, there were signs of advancement. Was this the opportunity that Xian had mentioned? Numerous profound energy was guided by Yi Qing Luo in his body as it flowed bit by bit. The majestic and turbulent energy was getting stronger and stronger. It was like a whirlpool that came one after another. Boom! In Yi Qing Luo's mind, a sudden clap of thunder exploded. The profound energy that was swirling around his body shook as well. Following that, it slowly merged into Yi Qing Luo's body. Everything in the surroundings gradually regained its tranquility. Yi Qing Luo's breathing also calmed down. She slowly opened her eyes. Her enchanting eyes twinkled, causing her disguised face to look even more dazzling. She exhaled a breath of foul air. Her entire body was filled with a refreshing feeling. Master! Chi cried out in joy, striding forward on its four limbs as it flew to Yi Qing Luo's side. No wonder she was its master. Chapter 25:02. Chi. Yi Qing Luo hugged Chi's head. That plump tiger head. Yi Qing Luo couldn't even hug it with one hand. But Yi Qing Luo's 5 fingers grabbed on Chi's fur as she raised her brows. Little Chi, who is your master? Chi Ao Jiao asked you to throw me away, and you threw me away just like that? Hmm? When the last word was spat out, Yi Qing Luo intentionally emphasized the ending. Chi-Chi's huge tiger body shuddered slightly. The huge tiger eyes immediately revealed an aggrieved expression. Master, sob sob sob. Chi-Chi didn't do it on purpose. Her childish voice was filled with a sense of grievance. Saying that, it even used its head and rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's body bit by bit. A tiger as huge as a mountain was acting cute in front of her. What kind of feeling was that? Yi Qing Luo expressed that she had raised a big, big cat. Speak. Why must you listen to Chi Ao Jiao? Yi Qing Luo's heart was softened by Chi Chi's cute actions, but she pretended to be angry on the surface. This little fellow obviously knew what this place was and what the opportunity that Xian mentioned was, but it refused to say anything, not letting this little fellow explain anything. Even her own war pet, her own little fellow, could do little tricks behind her back. Was she still considered as a qualified master? As expected, when it saw Yi Qing Luo's straight face, Chi-Chi immediately cried and acted cute. Because Chi-Chi wants to help Master. Under Chi-Chi's childish explanation, Yi Qing Luo finally understood. This seal ground, what kind of place was it? She finally understood. YDMO Xian said that this was her opportunity, and the reason why Chi-Chi and Chi Yin would appear here. So the Miao tribe's forbidden land was sealed. It was one of the 4 sacred beasts. Black Tortoise. Just earlier, after Chi-Chi and Black Tortoise had a short contact, Chi-Chi then understood the reason why the Black Tortoise was sealed here. 700 years ago, Black Tortoise, which had been in deep slumber, was awakened by a summon near the Miao tribe village. A sacred beast which could summon the wind and rain. In this lower plane, there was no master to control them. Since it did not differentiate between good and evil, it naturally did as it pleased without any apprehension and stirred up a storm in the Nirvana realm. However, even though it was one of the 4 great divine beasts, it had been in a deep slumber for too long after all. The spiritual energy in the lower realm was not as pure as it used to be. The Black Tortoise consumed too much energy when he couldn't replenish his spiritual qi. At that time, the Holy Maiden of the Miaogu clan had used a forbidden art of the Miaogu clan to seal the Black Tortoise under the Miaogu clan. She had left behind an ancestral teaching to suppress the seal for generations to come. And this time, the arrival of Yi Qing Luo and the 2 Bu elders coincidentally unlocked the Black Tortoise's seal. Yi Qing Luo and the 2 sacred beasts had already signed a contract. Her blood could naturally cause the Black Tortoise to react. That drop of blood from Yi Qing Luo had unlocked the first layer of Black Tortoise's seal. Then, the 2 elders of the Bu family used their true feelings as a sacrifice to open the second layer of the seal. He successfully awakened the Black Tortoise. And because of that, there was that scene earlier. So, to say, you listened to Chi Ao Jiao's words and threw me down just to let me contract the Black Tortoise? Yi Qing Luo understood the meaning behind Chi Chi's words. Chi Chi valued her, just like how she valued Chi Chi. Chapter 25:03. I'm not contracting the Black Tortoise either. Chi Chi mumbled softly. The Black Tortoise's temperament is different from ours. It doesn't differentiate between good and evil. Everything depends on its own preferences. Yi Qing Luo pinched Chi Chi's ears. In that case, you're not sure if Black Tortoise will accept me. So you threw me down? Chi Chi blinked its intelligent tiger eyes. Chi Chi believes that as long as its master, he will definitely be able to find the Black Tortoise. Saying that, he carefully sized up Yi Qing Luo's expression. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change, he hurriedly added another sentence. Master can even contract that bad-tempered little Chi Chi, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to contract Black Tortoise. After the little guy woke up, his ability to act coquettishly and flatter had increased. Yi Qing Luo pinched Chi Chi's face and didn't continue to argue with Chi-Chi over this point. Instead, she grasped the main point of Chi-Chi's words and asked, "You said you found the black tortoise found. What do you mean?" Chi-Chi said that she had succeeded. But Yi-Ching Luo didn't sense the presence of the black tortoise in the pet space. Furthermore, she could not even sense the black tortoise's aura. Therefore, she did not contract the black tortoise. Only half of the black tortoise's soul is sealed here. Chi-Chi lowered her head and said softly, "Half a soul?" Yi-Ching Luo suddenly recalled that when she was in a daze, she saw a smear of jade green fog. Could that be the black tortoise's soul? Chi-Chi seemed to have seen through the doubt in Yi-Ching Luo's heart as it nodded its big tiger head. Black tortoise has accepted Master. That's why it willingly sent its soul into Master's profound heart jade. It was no wonder that after the green mist entered her heart, she felt that powerful force almost burst her meridians. She was promoted. It was also because he had absorbed the black tortoise's soul. Master can first use the profound heart jade to nurture the black tortoise's soul. When you find the other half of the black tortoise's soul, Master can form a contract with the black tortoise. There was a trace of excitement in Chi-Chi's voice. Yi-Ching Luo raised her hand and gently pressed on the area where her heart was. He sensed the extremely quiet soul within the profound heart jade. She sighed. "I see." Moreover, Black Tortoise was Chi-Chi and Chi-Yan's brother. Seeing how excited Chi-Chi was, it was as if she was about to meet her best friend. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't bear to reject him. What's more, she had contracted the Black Tortoise, which was beneficial to her. However, Yi-Ching Luo recalled that Jun Qingwu had once told her about another way to head to the upper realm. Now, the three sacred beasts were all in her hands. In other words, even the heavens were helping her make the choice. He helped her choose to collect the sacred beast beads and open the path to the upper realm. Master, the Black Tortoise's soul is already in your profound heart jade. The Meow Tribe seal has also been broken. Very soon, this place will collapse. Chi-Chi will bring you out of here first. Chi-Chi used her head to nudge Yi-Ching Luo and reminded her. Yi-Ching Luo nodded and quickly leaped onto Chi-Chi's back. Rumble. Almost at the same time, a violent earthquake broke out in the surroundings. Countless explosions rang out. Chi-Chi's four limbs moved as it sprinted upwards. Boom! Yi-Ching Luo felt something collapsing behind her. For some reason, she turned around to take a look. Chapter 2504. That stone statue was extremely huge. It was at least one size bigger than Chi-Chi's current form. It looked like a huge tortoise. Its entire body was wrapped in a hard tortoise shell. The most horrifying thing was on that huge tortoise shell, there were two snake-like and dragon-like things. Boom, boom. It was another earth-shattering sound. The stone statue broke apart and fell down. Yi-Ching Luo saw it. That pair of jade-green eyes was especially bright in the jade light. Bam! Yi-Ching Luo only felt a gust of bone-piercing wind brushing past her face. The body that was sitting on Chi-Chi's back was flung out violently. Ching Luo. A few familiar voices rang in her ears. Immediately, she saw a slender figure flying over and catching her steadily. The impact of Yi-Ching Luo being flung out was rather strong. Both of them retreated more than 10 meters before they managed to stabilize themselves. Yi-Ching Luo felt a little dizzy as she shook her head and raised her eyes. She met with a cold and beautiful face. Little Wu-Wu. Yi-Ching Luo smiled. Jun Qingwu's face was icy cold as she let go of her hand. Steady yourself. Yi-Ching Luo felt that this attitude was like a domineering CEO. Her feet were standing on the ground. She could feel the real feeling of standing on the ground. Yi-Ching Luo finally had a feeling of being revived. After she stabilized herself, she immediately sensed Chi-Chi's direction. Chi-Chi, are you all right? The moment they came out of the Forbidden Grounds, the Forbidden Grounds exploded automatically. This caused a human and a beast to be flung out. Chi-Chi's body was huge, and the sacred beast's agility was hundreds of times stronger than a human. After it was flung out, it quickly stabilized itself, just as it was about to catch its master. But it discovered its master was being carried in the arms of a beautiful sister. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes in shock. Master is with the beautiful sister behind the overlord's back. Yi-Ching Luo, huh? Jun Qing Wu. The surrounding crowd. Ha ha ha. Chi-Chi, go back and have a good rest. Yi-Ching Luo felt that the little fellow's words were too shocking and decisively recalled Chi-Chi back into the pet space. Not long after Chi-Chi woke up, he had also spent too much energy in the forbidden area. He returned to the pet space. Yin Xiao, Yi, and the others crowded around. Qing Luo, are you all right? The few of them surrounded Yi-Ching Luo and sized her up. After confirming that there were no wounds on Yi-Ching Luo's body, he was finally relieved. Outside of the crowd, Gui Wu glanced at Yi-Ching Luo indifferently. Promoted? Does this mean that you've already gotten the opportunity that Dizun mentioned? Gui Wu's words. Only then did everyone realize. Yi-Ching Luo's entire temperament had another layer of rebirth. That pair of charming eyes was still clear and enchanting, but there was a trace of unfathomable brilliance in them. Yin Xiao was so shocked that her mouth was agape. My God, Qing Luo, you're simply too abnormal. How long has it been? You've advanced a grade again? One must know that Yi-Ching Luo was a Sky Profound cultivator. The Sky Profound realm could be said to be the God realm in everyone's mind. Advancing to the next rank was much more difficult than advancing to the next rank. Yi-Ching Luo actually advanced again. This group of ordinary people had been devastated to the point that they had nothing left to live for. Yi-Ching Luo nodded and raised her eyes to look at the indifferent Gui Wu. I have something to ask you. Gui Wu saw through Yi-Ching Luo's thoughts. Want to ask about the Overlord. Chapter 2505. Yi-Ching Luo had always known that Gui Wu was absolutely not just a martial arts fanatic from the lower realm, or a grandmaster who guided his students. DMO Xian was mentioned. Even Yin Xiao fell silent. Yi-Ching Luo saw that the few of them didn't look too good. Her heart sank. Suddenly, he recalled the scene of DMO Xian disappearing in the Forbidden Land. Her heart tightened, and when she opened her mouth again, her voice was a bit hoarse. Did something happen to Ah Xian? Otherwise, Ah Xian would not have left her at that time. When Ah Xian was in the Forbidden Land, something was obviously wrong. His entire person was like a gust of wind, disappearing into thin air. Something did happen. Gui Wu did not beat around the bush. Yi-Ching Luo's heart thumped fiercely as her complexion instantly turned pale and her petite body unconsciously swayed. What nonsense are you talking about? The Overlord's brother-in-law is not in trouble. Kitty Lee couldn't bear to see her own sister in such a state as she immediately struggled out of Zhou Mo's restraint, wanting to comfort Yi-Ching Luo. Zhou Mo tightened his arms, narrowed his phoenix eyes, and whispered in her ear, Little wild cat, be good and let me hold you. Don't talk, okay? The rising tone of his voice had a devilish charm to it. Kitty Lee's ears were sensitive, so when Zhou Mo's warm breath brushed past her, her delicate body immediately went soft. She blushed and hit his arm. Frivolous man, let go of Kitty Lee. Kitty wants to accompany Big Sister. You said it yourself. Dizun is fine. Won't she be more worried that something has happened to Dizun if you're in such a hurry to accompany her? Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. Kitty Lee was stunned and bit her lower lip. In the end, she stopped struggling and looked at Yi-Ching Luo seriously. Sister, Overlord brother-in-law is really fine. He wouldn't bear to make you unhappy. Yi-Ching Luo closed her eyes and waved away the image of DMO Xian's disappearance that kept replaying in her mind. Master Gui Wu, the Ah Xian who accompanied me in the forbidden area just now, isn't the real Ah Xian, right? Actually, when DMO Xian disappeared, she already had a trace of conjecture in her heart. However, she deliberately buried all her guesses in the bottom of her heart and pretended not to notice. Yes, Gui Wu's reply was straightforward, concise, and comprehensive, as he calmly told her about the matter regarding Dmo Xian and his doppelganger. Yiqing Luo quietly listened to Gui Wu's words. The expression on his face was very calm. However, every single word that Gui Wu said, every single sentence, Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was pricked by needles. He actually left a trace of his consciousness in her pendant to protect her. From start to finish, he had never left her side. Compared to the Nirvana realm, the place he was heading to was the upper realm. It was such a dangerous place. He was still taking such risks. Just to protect her, this man, why did he always do things that made her both angry and touched? Gui Wu had said it before. In the forbidden area, Dmo Xian had already exhausted a lot of energy to contend against the seal power set by the Miao tribe's ancestors. Then, in order to protect her, he safely entered the sealed land. Moreover, it consumed a large amount of his own strength. In other words, when Dmo Xian disappeared at the end, this was the last trace of his remaining consciousness and strength in her. Ever since they entered the seal, Dmo Xian had been using his strength to block the swallowing of the seal's power. He knew that with Chi-Chi and Chi-Yin around, Black Tortoise's seal power could not hurt him at all. He had exhausted all his strength. Chapter 2506. That silly man just wanted to spend more time with her. The doppelganger was damaged. His body would also be damaged. All of his power was spent on the seal. Would his real body in the upper realm affect the things he handled in the upper realm? The more Yiqing Luo thought, the more her heart trembled. Qing Luo. Yin Xiao Yi saw Yiqing Luo not speaking for a long time, and her pair of eyes had already turned red as she called out softly with heartache. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she pushed back the sour feeling in her nose. I'm fine. If I were him, I would also do the same. That was right if it was her. In order to spend more time with Dmo Xian, she would make the same choice. She understood Dmo Xian's choice. It was just that her heart ached for him. Her heart ached, and she missed him. Let's leave this place first. This is the Miao tribe after all. Xiao Jin looked around. Perhaps it was because this was a forbidden place for the Miao tribe. Such a huge commotion had occurred. Not a single Miao tribesman came over. I'm not leaving, Miao Yi said in a choked voice. She clenched her fists tightly, her bloodshot eyes burning with the flames of hatred. I want to kill Miao Yixiong and avenge the people of Bu village. Yiqing Luo thought of those two old men. In order not to drag her down, they resolutely chose to leap into the seal. She took a deep breath and looked at Miao Yi calmly. If you want revenge, you have to live. Miao Yi's body trembled and tensed up. Let's go. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she didn't wait for the others to react as she walked towards the exit of the Miao tribe. Yin Xiao Yi and the rest followed a few steps forward. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Miao Yi, who was standing on the spot with her fists tightly clenched. He opened his mouth a few times, wanting to call out to Miao Yi, but looking at Yiqing Luo's departing back view without hesitation. In the end, he didn't say anything and turned around to chase after Yiqing Luo's footsteps. After walking for about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the sound of hurried footsteps came from behind them. Very quickly, that man chased up to Yiqing Luo and opened up his arms, blocking her path. Big Sister Luo, I beg you, avenge the people of the Bu family village. Miao Yi's bloodshot eyes stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Sister Luo was right. If he wanted revenge, he had to stay alive. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to kill the Miao tribe leader. He would only be throwing his life away. She knew the only person who could help her was Sister Luo. Yiqing Luo stopped in her tracks as her gaze fell firmly onto Miao Yi. Her gaze was like a torch, as if she could see through Miao Yi's soul. Miao Yi felt a little uneasy under his gaze. After a long time, He finally heard Yiqing Luo opening her mouth. Even if you don't mention it, I will take revenge for the Bu family village. Miao Yi's outstretched arm stiffened. Then he slowly lowered his head. No matter what, I still thank you. Don't you want to take revenge personally? Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and looked at the depressed girl. Miao Yi's eyes brightened, but soon dimmed again. I want to, but I can't. There's no such thing as whether I can or cannot, only whether I want to or not. Yiqing Luo interrupted Miao Yi's words. As long as you want, I can let you take revenge personally, and let the Miao Gu family be consigned to eternal damnation. But I have a request. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, the light in Miao Yi's eyes grew brighter. She raised her head, and her eyes were filled with determination. As long as I can take revenge personally, I will agree to anything you say. Chapter 25:07. The group returned to the Peach Blossom restaurant. Seeing so many old friends in the Heavenly Academy, Peach was naturally excited and arranged a good room for everyone. Yiqing Luo also found out from a few of them what happened in the Heavenly Academy after she left. Everything was as she had expected. The headmaster of the Heavenly Profound Academy was removed from his position. Furthermore, he was forcefully sent to the South Wave continent by the headquarters and imprisoned in the headquarters to suffer. Regarding this news, Yiqing Luo wasn't surprised. Before she left, she had specially set up a trap for the Heavenly Dean. What the Heavenly Dean cared about the most was his Dean position. The most severe punishment for Dean Xian wasn't to let him die. Instead, she wanted him to lose everything that he had worked so hard to obtain. She made use of the incident at Shangshuan Temple to let Yin Xiang and Si Yin Mu collude to kill the Dean. She appeared to save Dean Xian and used him to leave Yin Xiang first. Before he left, he instructed Yin Xiao Yi to divulge the matter of the Heavenly Dean colluding with the Dark Forces. 1 or 2 elite students would go missing in the Heavenly Academy every month. The reason why the Heavenly Academy would force students to leave school for 3 days every month. The trip to the South Wave continent and the Blazing Nest were all part of the Dean's and the Dark Forces' plan to undo the King of Darkness seal. No matter how secretive the Heavenly Dean was in the past, there would still be some slip-ups. Coupled with some evidence, which Yiqing Luo had intentionally forged. Truth and falsehood, the Heavenly Dean would definitely be destroyed. Then, has the headquarters mentioned who the newly appointed Heavenly Profound Principal is? Yiqing Luo asked with a smile after she heard everyone's words. Yin Xiaoyi's face was full of smiles as she blinked her eyes mysteriously. Guess. It's definitely someone you wouldn't expect. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows and confidently said, It's Master Guiyu. Yin Xiaoyi's eyes widened as she covered her eyes and fell into Qiao Jin's embrace. Can't you let me play mysterious for once? How did you know it was Dean Guiyu? Yiqing Luo smiled. Ever since she set up a trap to destroy the Heavenly Dean, she had already predicted that the next president of the Heavenly Academy would be Old Man Guiyu. Yiqing Luo felt it. Old Man Guiyu had special feelings towards the Heavenly Academy. If it was Guiyu, the Heavenly Academy would continue to be at its peak and sit firmly on the honor of being the best academy. Yes, the new dean is Dean Guiyu. Yin Xiaoyi looked at Yiqing Luo's unfathomable smile as she rubbed her head against Xiao Jin's shoulder with a bored look. The main courtyard has also agreed to let Dean Guiyu take on the role of Heavenly Dean, and the Dean certificate has also been handed over to Dean Guiyu. Xiao Jin stroked her head, his eyes filled with love. Following that, his gaze slowly shifted onto Yiqing Luo. I heard that Dean Guiyu and the previous dean were best friends. Did you know about this long ago? Otherwise, how could Yiqing Luo be so sure that Old Man Guiyu would take over the position of the former director? Yiqing Luo nodded. Ever since Teacher Guiyu came to our devil class as a teacher, I already knew that there was a deep past between Teacher Guiyu and the previous director. Yes, I heard that when Dean Guiyu wanted to be a teacher in the devil class, the previous dean refused to let go no matter what. In the end, It was Dean Guayu who agreed to do something. Dean Guayu almost lost his life, and the previous dean then allowed Dean Guayu to be a teacher in the devil class. Chapter 25:08. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. She knew that Old Man Guayu was here to teach devil class. He must have made some sort of deal with the former dean, but he didn't expect. He had almost lost his life. Thinking of Old Man Guayu's crazed face, her heart softened. Teacher Guayu being the dean is the best outcome. Yiqing Luo's brows curved. After the matters in Northern Tide Continent are settled, we will return to the academy and celebrate with Teacher Guayu. Yin Xiao Yi grunted heavily. This time, Slut Jean, Shadow, and I came to the Northern Wave Continent, firstly to see you, and secondly, to represent the Heavenly Academy to attend the birthday banquet of the Qingyue sect lord. Yiqing Luo roughly guessed the reason why they would appear here. Just hearing it from their own mouths, she was still a little surprised. After all, Yin Xiao Yi and the rest were merely students of the Heavenly Academy. In terms of qualifications and status, it was not the turn of the devil class students to be the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. With Old Man Guayu's habit of protecting his children, it didn't matter if the devil class students were qualified or not. If Old Man Guayu said so, no one would dare to object. Old Man Guayu must be worried that she would not be able to lead a stable life in the North Wave Continent. He also knew that the students of the devil class all missed him. That was why he had to withstand the pressure from the entire academy to appoint Yin Xiao Yi and the rest as the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. Yin Xiao Yi noticed her gaze and replied, Master Guwu and young Master Mo are here to participate in the Qingyue sect master's birthday banquet. Guayu was worried that the three of us might encounter danger, so he asked Master Wu and young Master Mo to accompany us. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her gaze turned into a teasing one. If I remember correctly, as a martial arts fanatic, Ghost martial artist would never participate in any birthday banquets or grand ceremonies. Even if the sect master personally invited him, the ghost martial artist might not give him any face. This time, he traveled thousands of miles from the South Continent to the West Continent, and from the West Continent all the way to the North Continent. She looked at Zhou Mo with a teasing gaze. Guayu had definitely followed Zhou Mo here. As for Zhou Mo, clearly they were here for Kitty Lee. In order to chase after his wife, Zhou Mo was really going all out. In order to support his brother, the ghost martial artist was quite strenuous. 3 days later, on the birthday of the Qingyue sect master, since last night, the city had been bustling with noise and excitement. The crackling of the firecrackers never stopped. There were also all kinds of festive bands roaming the streets and alleys. The city was decorated with lanterns and color banners. Melodious music was being played, and the atmosphere was joyous. The commoners had filled up the streets and alleys of the Qingyue sect, and they were all talking about the deeds of the Qingyue sect master. Of course, this didn't mean that the Qingyue sect was a living bodhisattva in the eyes of the commoners, but because today all the nobles and officials from different continents would gather in the Joy City. They naturally wanted to let the people of the other continents see the respect they had for the Qingyue sect. Every commoner had the heart to protect their own continent. They were all unwilling to let the people of other continents look down on their own continent. As a result, the citizens cheered even more fervently. Of course, there were also people from other continents who came to the Northern Wave Continent to attend the birthday banquet. He had also put in a lot of effort to highlight the prosperity of his continent. On the streets, all kinds of luxurious carriages and top-grade horses galloped about. Chapter 25:09. Although the street was crowded, people still lined up in an orderly manner. After all, everyone wanted to maintain their elegance and quality, so as not to be criticized. Giving way to each other was courteous and respectful. However, such a peaceful appearance. It was broken after the arrival of a group of people. There were about 30 people in that group of people. The guards were dressed in glittering golden clothes, and the weapons in their hands were so sharp that they could blind people's eyes. Surrounded in the middle by the guards was an extremely luxurious and noble carriage. Above the carriage, there was a white veil. In the haze, there was an enchanting figure. This group of people walked extremely proudly, with their heads held high and their chests puffed out, and their steps were powerful. If it was any other time, from the looks of it, this pair of people had a mighty aura that made people envious. But on this occasion, they were all high-ranking officials and dignitaries from various continents. Their attitude was simply a joke. This was especially true for this group of people. They were charging forward without any misgivings at all. They had a posture of, "I am opening this road. Everyone get out of the way." Although the distinguished guests from other continents were unhappy, in order to maintain their demeanor, they naturally took the initiative to make way. But this behavior of maintaining demeanor, in the eyes of this group of people, everyone was afraid of their power. The common people already couldn't help but whisper to each other, "What kind of big shot is that? They look very arrogant." That's right. Why are so many distinguished guests making way for them? Some people guessed the identity of that group of people. Some people sneered disdainfully. What big shot? I think they don't know what is polite at all. That's right. Putting on an air of supremacy, they really think they are big shots. This extravagant and exaggerated posture, no matter how you look at it, it's just pretentious. Soon, someone recognized the flag at the forefront of that group of people. Look, that's the symbol of the East Continent's royal family. This group of people is the representative of the East Continent's royal family. So was the royal family. No wonder they were so arrogant. But this was the North Continent. Moreover, many royal family representatives from other continents had also come. He had never seen any other royal family being so rude, had he? Furthermore, the representatives of the East Wave Continent's Jade Dome sect were still obediently lining up and entering the Joy Clan Palace in an orderly manner. What right did the royal family have to be so arrogant? However, today, the Qingyue city was bustling with activity. The voices of the commoners were drowned out by the music. Lan Ling Nuo, who was sitting in the carriage with a graceful posture, did not hear the criticism of the commoners outside. Through the white veil, she could see countless high officials and dignitaries making way for her. Some of the commoners were even talking about the East Wave imperial family. Lan Ling Nuo thought that it was because the power of the East Wave continent was overwhelming and everyone was afraid of the Lan family. In his heart, he felt more and more pleased. Lan Ling Nuo had grown up in a situation where everyone doted on her, especially her beautiful face. Her life on the East Wave continent was smooth sailing, even if he went to the West continent and entered the academy. She was also a fairy who was held in the palm of others' hands and respected. Because of this, Lan Ling Nuo didn't think that these people were being courteous to her because of courtesy, but because they were afraid of her identity as the East Wave's imperial family. Little did she know, among the many distinguished guests, Chapter 2510. Yiqing Luo and the rest were also heading to Qingyue clan's birthday banquet today. A line of 10 people sat in a spacious carriage. Xiao Jin was chased outside the carriage to drive. They were more low-key, and under the contrast of the other luxurious carriages, their carriage looked very ordinary. Because of that, no other guests in the queue came forward to strike up a conversation. They were happy to be idle. Yiqing Luo lifted the curtains and took a look at the carriages and carriages beside the carriage, truly worthy of being one of the 4 major sects. Qingyue sect. Just a birthday banquet, and so many people are attending. I wonder if the Qingyue sect's manor can accommodate so many people. Looking at the sea of people, Lin Fan felt a chill down his spine. Yiqing Luo expressed that Yi Tianquang had really played Three Springs sect to waste. They were obviously one of the 4 major sections. Although Yi Tianquang's birthday banquet was also very lively, but those who came were all small families and couldn't be seen in public. Without comparison, there would be no harm. In future, Feng Yu's birthday banquet will be even more lively than Qingyue clan's. Yin Xiao also stuck her head out to look outside the curtain. I don't wish. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly shook her head. Yi Fengyu's birthday banquet was so extravagant. As the elder sister, wouldn't she be exhausted to death? Yin Xiao burst out laughing. Outside the curtain, the carriages were crowded, and it was too dangerous to stick her head out. Xiao Jin pressed Yin Xiao Yi's head and pushed her back into the carriage. In order to prevent Yin Xiao Yi from doing anything dangerous, he started a topic. You're attending Qingyue clan sovereign's birthday banquet because the person who helped class monitor to suppress the poison is also there, based on Yi Qing Luo's character. This kind of occasion was troublesome, and Yi Qing Luo's changed face had become famous on the first day she arrived in the northern continent. If she appeared at the sovereign's birthday banquet, she would probably stir up another storm. Most importantly, for this birthday banquet, the Miaogu family would also be there. Yi Qing Luo should take this opportunity to overturn the Miaogu family. They didn't expect Yi Qing Luo to follow them to the birthday banquet. They had no choice but to admit that Devil Class's bunch of brothers had interacted with Yi Qing Luo for a long time, so they had more or less figured out Yi Qing Luo's character. Eldest young Miss Miao has been poisoned by me and needs my antidote. I think today, she will take the initiative to beg me. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as a crafty cold arc flashed past her eyes. Eldest young Miss Miao is able to suppress the class monitor's venom? Xiao Ji knew that Yi Qing Luo definitely had an ulterior motive for attending the birthday banquet. It seemed like the sect leader of the Qingyue sect's birthday banquet was going to be spectacular. Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders. I don't know about venomous spells, so I don't know how good eldest Miss Miao's venomous spells are, but she paused, and a meaningful look appeared on her face. Then, his gaze fell on Miao Yi, who was sitting in the corner with her head lowered and in a daze. The few of them followed Yi Qing Luo's line of sight. Miao Yi was immersed in her own thoughts and did not notice. Xian Gui, who had been sticking close to Miao Yi, raised his head. The skinny young man looked at them with clear eyes. The few of them smiled as Xian Gui and shifted their gazes away, continuing their conversation. Xiao Jin and the others weren't familiar with Miao Yi and Xian Gui, but seeing Yi Qing Luo chatting in front of them without any intention to avoid arousing suspicion, so they didn't treat the both of them as outsiders. The few of them were chatting idly. Suddenly the carriage, which was moving at a tortoise speed, shook, as though it had been hit by something fiercely. The few people in the carriage swayed from the impact. Chapter 25:11. Xian Gui immediately hugged Miao Yi's waist as his face flushed red. Second, Yi, are you all right? Miao Yi shook her head as she raised her head in a daze. What's the matter? Did you collide with someone else's carriage? Xiao Jin's icy cold voice was heard from outside the carriage. The troublemakers are here. Looking for trouble? Yi Qing Luo's brows rose when she heard that. We're so low profile, and there's still someone looking for trouble. Yi Qing Luo's voice had just ended. An ear-piercing roar was heard from outside the noisy carriage. How dare you? Do you know who's in the carriage? How dare you block the way? This guard's words were extremely arrogant. Xiao Jin scoffed as his voice was filled with coldness. No matter what your identity is, in this Qingyue city, you're just guests attending Qingyue sect's sovereign's birthday banquet. Moreover, you're the one who barged in and knocked into my carriage. I didn't ask you for compensation, but you're biting me instead. Speaking of this, Xiao Jin's tone became even more disdainful. I'm rather curious, what's your identity, to have such a big face? You, how dare you? The leading guard's face flushed red as he raised the long spear in his hand and pointed it at Xiao Jin. Barging in all the way, all the officials and dignitaries automatically gave way to them. The guard's self-confidence started to swell, especially when they saw such an ordinary carriage. They treated it as some small powerhouse who came over to freeload. What's the matter? Lonling Nua's impatient voice was heard from the carriage. Haven't you already submitted the invitation, still not going in? Regent Princess, we met a small powerhouse who not only collided with you, they even blocked the entrance of Qingyue sect not allowing you to enter." That guard complained at the top of his voice. Lanling Nua's beautiful face surfaced a sliver of anger when she heard that. Along the way, everyone was polite to her, East Lawn Region Princess. A small powerhouse actually dared to block her way. Lanling Nua looked at the bustling guests and commoners through the white veil. Her beautiful eyes suddenly flashed a glint of brilliance. That's right. Now was the time when it was bustling with noise and attention. She revealed herself at this moment. Let the people from all the continents see her beauty. She would definitely attract countless men who would go crazy for her. As she thought this, Lanling Nua adjusted her state of mind in the carriage. She stood up and lifted the white veil. The luxurious 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix robe accentuated Lanling Nua's graceful figure. Her makeup was exquisite, and she was extremely beautiful. It was indeed an extremely beautiful face. His appearance had indeed attracted the attention of many distinguished guests and commoners. However, the moment Lanling Nua opened her mouth, she destroyed her eyebrows. Where did this small force come from? Don't they understand the principle of first come, first served? It's no wonder that they're just a small force that can't even be shown in public. Lanling Nua had a haughty look as she glanced at the extremely ordinary carriage with disdain. His heart also relaxed. The disdain in his eyes deepened. Riding this kind of carriage to attend the Qingyue sect master's birthday banquet, it was obvious that he was a small fry with no power or status. How dare he block the path of the dignified Eastern Wave County Lord? However, Chapter 25:12. With that in mind, Lanling Nua's lips curled up into a smile. She smiled sweetly and said, "I am not a barbaric person. Seeing that you are only a small force and don't know the rules, I will not argue with you. You have offended me." She paused for a moment, then continued with a smile. "What about you? All of you, get out of the car. Kneel down and kowtow in front of me to apologize. I'll forgive you for your rudeness this time." As Lanling Nua spoke, she couldn't help but praise herself for being so kind-hearted. She wanted everyone to think that she, the Princess of East Wave, was not only beautiful, but also kind-hearted. She wouldn't hold it against such lowly people. However, she didn't know that her current behavior had already aroused the disgust of most people. Those who had an invitation and could attend the birthday banquet of the Qingyue sect leader were either rich or powerful. They were all people of the upper class. How could a little girl like Lanling Nua be able to fool them? Look at Lanling Nua, who was pretending to be gentle. She couldn't hide the arrogance and haughtiness in her eyes. It didn't match the fake gentleness she was pretending to be. Especially since Lanling Nua had appeared, she had been arrogant, despotic, and arrogant. She treated everyone's modesty as a matter of course. She was really annoying. She didn't know why the ruler of the East Wave continent would send such a useless princess to represent the royal family. Wasn't she afraid of losing the face of the East Wave continent's royal family? Xiao Jin frowned. He clearly wasn't in the mood to argue with Lanling Nua. A good dog doesn't block the way. Get lost. Lanling Nua's arrogant face froze. She was already trying to be kind and forgiving of these lowly forces. This lowly driver actually called her a dog and even shouted at her. Since young, where wasn't she, Lanling Nua, pampered at the top of everyone's hearts? Lanling Nua was so angry that her face darkened. She couldn't maintain her dignified and gentle expression any longer. "How dare you? You're just a driver. How dare you speak to me like this? Call your master out for me." The guard behind her saw that their princess was angry. Immediately, 2 strong guards walked quickly toward the carriage. "The people in the carriage, get down from our princess." One of the guards stepped onto the carriage and pulled open the curtains. He was about to reach out and drag the person away. Xiao Jin saw that the guard was using brute force and did not stop him. Instead, he dodged to the side. Lanling Nua couldn't help but laugh out loud. A cowardly groom. After being frightened, all his temper was gone. Just a moment ago, he even dared to insult her, the Eastern Wave County Lord. After she taught the owner of the carriage a lesson, she would also teach the coachman a lesson. Ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. A figure flew out from the ordinary carriage. Most of the distinguished guests who were spectating were profound practitioners or had countless experts by their side. The moment his figure flew out, he immediately moved away. The figure landed heavily on the ground. Everyone fixed their eyes on him and saw that he was actually a guard dressed in a dazzling outfit. Lanling Nuo was stunned. She didn't expect that the person in the carriage would dare to attack her after knowing her identity. He was so angry that his face turned pale. He immediately ordered the other guards to use brute force to destroy the carriage. It was very crowded. All the distinguished guests were in a hurry to enter the Joy Clan residence and take their seats. They weren't in the mood to watch the unreasonable pestering of the Eastern Wave County Lord. Especially now, the Eastern Wave County Lord and the owner of the carriage were blocking the entrance of the Joy Clan residence. Lanling Nuo didn't have any intention of stopping. Instead, she became more and more aggressive. Chapter 25:13. Don't block the entrance of the Chinue clan if you have any grudges. Okay? If you don't want to go in, then don't hold everyone back. There are still many people waiting in line. As soon as the complaint was voiced, it was immediately echoed by the others. They already knew about the East Wave County Lord's arrogance and disrespect, so they were not interested in knowing more about it. They came all the way to the North Wave continent to build a relationship with the Chinue clan. They were not interested in watching the little girls show off. There were even some honored guests who were resentful because Lanling Nuo had cut the queue and barged through the crowd, and they couldn't help but mock her. Today is the birthday of the sect master of the Chinue clan. East Wave County Lord. Is this the attitude of the East Wave Continent's royal family toward the sect master of the Chinue clan? Or the teachings that the East Wave County Lord has received since she was young is that the East Wave Continent is the only one in the Nirvana realm. Every word and sentence caused the forces from the East Wave Continent to break out in a cold sweat. The representatives of the forces from the East Wave Continent wanted to disassociate themselves. However, Lanling Nuo frowned her beautiful face and looked at the surrounding guests with an aggrieved expression. It was this lowly force that offended me. It's their fault. Why do you keep blaming me? As she spoke, her eyes turned red. He had a pitiful look on his face. This expression, coupled with her exquisite and beautiful face, was indeed an alluring stunner. It could indeed arouse the protective desire of men. However, Lanling Nuo was still trying to use her beauty to absolve herself from the blame at this critical juncture when she had incurred the wrath of the public. That would be a big mistake. Even if some forces were attracted by Lanling Nuo's beauty, think about her arrogant personality. Look at her pitiful appearance now. No matter how you looked at it, it felt very awkward, especially since Lanling Nuo's actions had offended a large number of noble ladies. These noble ladies had grown up in the backyard since young. She kept saying one thing after another. Every word she said made Lanling Nuo so ashamed that she could not refute. In an instant, Lanling Nuo's face turned red from the criticism of those noble ladies and ladies, as well as the guests who were already extremely impatient. Lanling Nuo had never suffered such humiliation. Just as Lanling Nuo was about to explode in anger, a small figure, under the protection of a group of well-trained guards, walked over quickly. Sister Nuo, what happened? When Lanling Nuo saw her, it was as if she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Lingling, you must seek justice for me. Someone dares to be so arrogant in your Northern Tide Continent's territory. They simply don't respect your Northern Tide Continent. Lanling Nuo's face turned red, and she was so angry that her eyes turned red. When Xia Lingling saw this, she felt that Lanling Nuo was so angry that she was crying. He recalled the scene of Lanling Nuo saving him at the Peach Blossom restaurant. Xia Lingling immediately held Lanling Nuo's hand tightly. This time, it was her turn to protect elder sister Nuo. She raised her head, and her small face was filled with displeasure as she glared at those people. You are all reputable people from various continents. Don't you feel embarrassed bullying a little girl like this? Everyone had been waiting at the entrance of Qingyue clan residence for a long time. They were blocked at the entrance, and they could only watch as Lanling Nuo threw a tantrum. They had long suppressed their displeasure in their hearts. Chapter 25:14. First, it was the princess of the East Billow region who was arrogant and rude in front of them. Seeing that she was just a little girl, he maintained the attitude that it wasn't appropriate for her to cause trouble on the birthday of the Qingyue sect master. They graciously endured it. Now, Princess Baelon was criticizing them. Although they were on their own continent, their status and power were indeed incomparable to the royal family. But that didn't mean that he was going to the Northern Wave continent to attend the birthday banquet. He was even bullied by the royal family of the Northern Wave continent. If this news were to spread back to his own continent, wouldn't they become the laughingstock of the Northern Wave continent? There were even people from other continents making guesses. Were the East and North continents planning to join forces and invade the other two continents? As soon as these words were spoken, it instantly caused all the distinguished guests and the surrounding commoners to panic. This was related to the peace of the Nirvana realm. The distinguished guests from the various continents immediately began to question. The representatives of the forces of the two continents in the north and east hurriedly explained. This meant that they had absolutely no intention of destroying the peace of the Nirvana realm. Lanling Nuo realized the seriousness of the matter under everyone's pushing and shouting. Her heart trembled violently, and her little hand tightly grasped Xia Lingling's wrist. If this group of people really believed that she and Xia Lingling, as the representatives of the royal families of the two continents, had joined forces to destroy the peace of the Nirvana realm, she would be killed by these people. Furthermore, even if these people let her go back to the East Wave continent, no matter how much Uncle June spoiled her, she had caused such a huge commotion. Uncle Monarch would not let her off easily either. Lanling Nuon knew how to make use of her beauty. In the East and West continents, she was doing very well. Naturally, she was not a fool. She immediately grabbed Xia Lingling's hand and said with a sobbing tone, "Lingling, you've misunderstood. It's not the lords, it's the person in the carriage." As she spoke, she put on a humiliated expression. It was clearly my East Billow tribe's invitation that was sent first, but the coachman of this carriage actually drove his horse and directly bumped into me, insisting on entering the manor before me. I couldn't take it anymore, so I argued with the coachman, but I didn't expect. Lanling Nuo wanted to push all the blame for this farce onto the small faction in the horse carriage. In any case, it was just a lowly small force. To die for her, Princess Dongwon. That would be their honor. However, he could not personally teach these lowly and rude people a lesson. Xia Lingling was startled. She immediately turned her head to look at the low-profile carriage. She frowned and lifted her foot to kick the carriage. "The people inside, get out." Once again, she called out to Lanling Nuo's guards and her own guards. "Push the carriage to the side for me. Don't delay everyone from attending Uncle Sect Leader's birthday." The two girls directly ignored the surrounding guests who were pointing at them and gossiping about them. All of them turned their attention to the carriage. One of them burst into tears. One of them kicked the carriage in a rude and unreasonable manner. They were all people of status, and they weren't young either. At this time, it was not good to continue to harass the two little girls. In the carriage, Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes revealed a trace of teasing smile. Although Xia Lingling was only 12 or 13 years old, she was very quick-witted. He specifically asked the guards to push their carriage aside and make way for them. The distinguished guests had been delayed for a long time, and their hearts were already burning with anxiety. Chapter 25:15. Adding on to that, Xia Lingling's greeting of Uncle Sovereign had successfully intimidated them. They were here to offer their blessings to the sovereign of Qingyue sect. For Xia Lingling to address the sovereign of Qingyue sect as uncle, it was obvious that the relationship between the royal family and the sovereign of Qingyue sect was rather close. so it was even more impossible for them to haggle over anything. How could Yi Qing Luo allow this show to end so easily? If she didn't teach them a lesson, they didn't know how to learn from their mistakes. This could be considered as her teaching them a lesson. Bam! Bam, bam, bam. Just as the two groups of guards swarmed towards the carriage, trying to push the carriage away, an extremely powerful, profound energy suddenly exploded from within the carriage. That force sent the guards, who were caught off guard, flying. One by one, they fell onto the ground, crying out in pain. "You! How dare you lay your hands on the royal guards?" Xiao Lingling couldn't believe her eyes as she watched her guard fall to the ground and wail in pain. Lanling Nuo, who was standing by the side, sobbed softly. "Earlier I asked the guards to ask the owner of the carriage to alight, but was thrown out by the person in the carriage. It's just a small powerhouse, but they totally disregarded us." Her tone sounded as though she had suffered a huge grievance. She was obviously complaining, but she was reminding Xiao Lingling. The person in the carriage was just someone from a small powerhouse, and he was extremely arrogant. When Xiao Lingling heard that, she was so infuriated that her face turned red. She had always relied on her status as a little princess and was used to doing evil. The word she couldn't bear to hear was others disregarding her. This princess wants to see how powerful a small powerhouse's representative is. Xiao Lingling walked directly to the side of the carriage and lifted her leg to step on the curtain. Xiao Jin, who was by the side, had long sat at the side with a, "You guys can fight however you want. I'm just here to watch the show," look. Xiao Lingling shot a disdainful glance at Xiao Jin. She raised her hand and was about to lift the curtain. Her hand hadn't even been lifted. That floating curtain was pinched by a hand. That hand was as fair as jade, and the fingers were long and slender like a fine jade. Even Xiao Lingling, who had never done any manual labor and had meticulously taken care of her body every day, couldn't help but feel inferior when she saw her fair fingers. Then, the curtain of the carriage was lifted. A rather delicate face entered Xiao Lingling's sight. When Xiao Lingling's gaze was fixed on that face, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She suddenly screamed, "Ah!" Then, as if he had received a huge shock, he took a few steps back. He retreated. Xiao Lingling's footsteps missed. His body fell backwards. Boom! Xiao Lingling fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Her entire body was throbbing in pain from the fall. Even the slightest movement would cause his bones or tendons to be pulled, and he would feel a tearing pain. Young princess! The guards who had fallen to the ground were so frightened that they didn't have the mind to care about their injuries. One by one, they rushed forward and shouted anxiously, "Little commandery princess, are you all right? Young princess!" Ugh! Xiao Lingling was in so much pain from the fall that tears streamed down her face. With the help of the guards, she stood up, grimacing in pain and gasping. It's you! Xiao Lingling stared at the carriage in disbelief. She was so angry that her body was trembling and her voice was trembling. "Bitch! It's you again! The slender figure in red walked out of the carriage, even if she turned into ashes. Chapter 25:16. Yi Qing Luo half squatted on the carriage as she placed one hand on her knee. She tilted her head and looked at the disheveled Xia Lingling with a smile, which didn't look like a smile, as she burst out laughing. "Yo, isn't this little Princess Beilan why? After failing to flaunt your prowess at the Peach Blossom restaurant, you're now running over to the entrance of Qingyue sect to play your little princess tricks?" Xia Lingling's eyes were brimming with tears as her eyes shot out a ruthless glint. Her little face was twisted into a ball. "You slut! You've been disrespectful to me time and time again. Do you believe that I won't ask Uncle Monarch to chop off your head?" Xia Lingling's sharp voice screamed sharply. Seeing Yi Qing Luo, she recalled the humiliation she had suffered in Yi Qing Luo's hands previously. Her eyes were filled with fury. "Guards, capture this lowly commoner for me." The guards looked at each other in dismay. They weren't stupid. Earlier in the carriage, the force which had sent them flying. It was absolutely not a force which they could contend against. Xiao Lingling was after all still young and was in a fit of anger, so how could she think of anything else? Her mind was filled with the thought of teaching Yi Qing Luo a lesson, seeing that the guards were rooted to the ground. Xiao Lingling was so angry that she bared her teeth. I can't even order you around anymore, is it? All right, you bunch of trash, wait till I return. I will ask Uncle Monarch to confiscate your family. When the honored guests heard Xiao Lingling's arrogant words, their hearts involuntarily began to beat like drums. This Princess Beilan was extremely arrogant in her words, and from time to time, she would bring out her Uncle Monarch. Apparently, this was the reason why Monarch Beilan gave her such arrogant confidence. Everyone's gaze unconsciously shifted to the front where the signboard of the Delight Clan residence was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It was an extremely festive sight. A royal princess dared to create such a ruckus at the entrance of Qingyue sect and even asked the monarch to stand up for her. That meant that she didn't put Qingyue sect in her eyes at all. From the bottom of her heart, she felt that even if it was Qingyue sect, they had to submit to the royal family. Little Princess Beilan was only 12 or 13 years old. For her to have such arrogant behavior and remarks, it was obvious that someone had instilled a deep-rooted idea in her. This person, who else could it be other than Sovereign Beilan? In other words, was Monarch Beilan trying to suppress the Qingyue clan? This thought flashed across the minds of all the distinguished guests. They looked in the direction of the Joy clan residence with a meaningful and probing gaze. However, Xiao Lingling, who was in a fit of anger, did not notice that her actions had already aroused many speculations. Bitch! Don't think that you can bully people just because you have a high profound rank. This is the Northern Wave continent, outside of Uncle Sect Master's residence. If you dare to cause trouble, Uncle Sect Master will never let you off. Xiao Lingling's voice became softer and softer under Yi Qing Luo's pair of smiling, yet not smiling eyes, as her arrogance became lower and lower. At the end of her sentence, she felt her heart fill with fear, as though it was going to jump out of her throat. Her face was deathly pale, and her heart was filled with hatred. She did not want to be afraid of this slut. But unfortunately, the more she looked at this slut, the stranger she felt. Her lips trembled as she immediately sought help from Lanling. No, sister, no, look at this slut. Lanling Nuo had already squeezed into the crowd. Earlier, when the distinguished guests guessed that East Wave Continent and North Wave Continent were going to form an alliance, it gave her a reminder. Chapter 25:17. Although she despised these people who ran over to the North Continent, hoping to get in touch with the sovereign of Qingyue sect. But after all, these were all influential people from various continents. She wasn't afraid of these people, but she didn't want the East Continent to become enemies with these people. Because of this, Xiao Lingling, that idiot, stood out herself, standing at the heart of the struggle. Lanling Nuo decisively chose to let Xiao Lingling take the blame alone. But unexpectedly, Xiao Lingling actually dragged her out again. Lanling Nuo's expression was steely green, but when Xiao Lingling looked at her, her expression had already adjusted, with a timid look and red eyes. But in her heart, she was cursing Xiao Lingling over and over again. Lanling Nuo had no choice but to walk up. Her mind was spinning quickly. Everyone in the world sympathized with the weak. No matter what, she had to act pitiful now, using her beauty to attract all the VIPs to stand on her side. Hence, Lanling Nuo pretentiously pressed the corner of her eyes as she was about to cry. She's not a lady to be trifled with. Lingling, let's go. Saying that, Lanling Nuo pulled Xiao Lingling's arm and was about to leave. He vividly portrayed the look of helplessness and humiliation on his face. Look how pitiful she was. Bullied by a shrew, all the grievances could only be swallowed into her stomach. Lanling Nuo's pretentiousness, whether the VIPs took the bait or not, she didn't know. But Xiao Lingling was definitely stabbed. Not to be trifled with? In my North Continent's territory, there's someone whom I can't trifle with? Lanling Nua immediately continued. She dared to poison the Battle King's young lord, and even in the Peach Blossom restaurant, relying on the power of the Peach Blossom 3,000 mercenary group, totally disregarding the East Continent and North Continent. She must have a distinguished status. We'd better forget about it. It was obviously words of persuasion, but every single word was to agitate Xia Lingling, the two princess of the two continents, although they didn't interact often. But Lanling knew more or less understood Xia Lingling's character. Just a few words easily aroused Xia Lingling's competitive spirit. And when the VIPs heard Lanling Nua's words, their gazes shifted onto Yiqing Luo. Poison the young prince of the War King's mansion? How could this woman be so bold? There were also quite a number of people who had stayed in the city for a period of time. Naturally, they knew about the Battle King's mansion's search for a red-clothed girl. There were some who recognized Yiqing Luo. He immediately talked about the search in the warlord's mansion. Everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with probing. He seemed to be guessing what identity this seemingly ordinary young girl had to actually dare to touch the young prince of the warlord's mansion. Distinguished status? Xia Lingling's sharp voice rang out. Her, a lowly commoner, dares to say that he has an honorable status? Yiqing Luo, whose nose was pointed at, leisurely curled her pink lips as she tilted her head slightly, smiling at Xia Lingling. Lowly commoner? In the eyes of the young princess, we, the common people, are lowly peasants? Xia Lingling only heard the words, "We are ordinary people." Immediately, he was even more certain that Yiqing Luo was just a little thing without any influence. Without thinking, he sneered angrily. Of course, no power or influence. Aren't they lowly peasants? You have to bow and scrape when you see me. Aren't you lowly peasants? Yiqing Luo's smile grew wider. Chapter 25:18. Xia Lingling was so infuriated that her mind was muddled. Lanling Nua wasn't. She and Xia Lingling were on the same boat now. She walked up quickly and grabbed Xia Lingling's wrist, speaking in a low voice. Lingling, forget it. You're not her match. Not only were the VIPs from various continents around them, there were also the commoners of North Tide Continent. Xia Lingling belittled the commoners in front of them, and kept on calling them lowly commoners. Wasn't she trying to incite the anger of the commoners? The both of them represented the royal families of both continents. Unlike that slut who had no fear, the current situation, it was extremely disadvantageous to them. Anyway, the third day of the birthday banquet, they had plenty of chances to teach that slut a lesson. Lanling Nua took a look at the VIP's gazes, which all fell onto them. She adjusted her expression and gently patted Xia Lingling's hand. All right, Ling Ling, don't be calculated with those small powerhouses. They're all people who don't know the rules. Don't get yourself into a mess. Xia Lingling pursed her lips tightly. Her face was filled with anger as she stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. But she put on a look as though she had listened to Lanling Nua's persuasion. Just at this moment, a hurried voice was heard from the Qingyue sect's manor. Today is Qingyue sect's sovereign's birthday banquet. No matter what enmity we have, please treat each other respectfully on account of sovereign's face. Following that, a plump man dressed in a black brocade robe walked out in quick steps. The middle-aged man wiped the sweat off his forehead and saw the two young ladies blocking the entrance as he hurriedly put on a smile. Isn't this the East Wave Region Lord and Little Region Lord? You must have waited for a long time. Please come in. The middle-aged man smiled like a Methria Buddha. Apparently, Qingyue sect had heard about what happened outside the manor. They specially sent someone over to mediate. Looking at the middle-aged man's dressing, he should be at least a steward of Qingyue sect. As expected, Xia Lingling pouted and complained, "Stewardine, I arrived a long time ago. If I hadn't bumped into this lowly commoner, I would have come to congratulate Uncle Sect Leader on his birthday. O little ancestor, don't get angry and harm your body. Everyone here is a guest." Butler Een smiled as he conveyed Xia Lingling's message. He then said, The sect leader was still thinking about the two princesses just now. I'll bring the two princesses to see the sect leader. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell. Housekeeper Yin's words were just polite words to resolve the matter. However, Xiao Lingling couldn't tell. After all, he was still young, and some of his tricks were learned in the palace. But when it came to the human heart and irony, her attainments were still too shallow. On the contrary, she felt that housekeeper Yin had treated her with such importance, and every word he had said was to please her. It was enough to prove how favored she was in the Northern Wave continent. Even Uncle's sect master, on his birthday, was still thinking about her. Xiao Lingling gleefully threw a provocative look towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. At this moment, Lanling Nuo was also extremely pleased. He was even more certain that the East Wave continent was now so powerful that the other continents had to take a detour around it. It seemed that it wouldn't take long. The East Wave continent would be able to rule the entire Nirvana realm. After that, she would become the one and only region lord in the Nirvana realm. She proudly raised her pretty little face and put on a noble look as she looked at Housekeeper Yin, then lead the way. Housekeeper Yin's expression changed slightly. After all, he was used to playing Tai Chi, so he didn't want to haggle with a young lady. Chapter 25:19. Under everyone's gaze, Xiao Lingling and Lanling Nuo proudly walked through the entrance of the Joy Clan Manor. The steward of the Qingyue faction personally welcomed them. Even the representatives of the sects from the other continents would not receive such an honor. This time they had gained a lot of face. The two of them were secretly delighted, but they didn't know that the guests' impression of the two of them was already terrible to the extreme. There were also some large forces that were suspicious of the royal families of the eastern and northern continents. The two princesses were no longer waiting at the door, and the other guests could finally enter the Joy Clan Manor. Yi Qing Luo saw that the farce had ended and didn't intend to investigate further. Instead, he returned to the carriage. Xiao Jin handed over their invitations. When the gatekeeper saw the invitation that Xiao Jin handed over, the expression on his face suddenly changed. His eyes were filled with shock, and then he looked at the ordinary carriage with a trace of respect. Xiao Jin frowned slightly and looked coldly at the gatekeeper. Only then did the gatekeeper react and hurriedly stood up. "Please come in. Please come in." The carriage slowly entered the Joy Clan Manor. The guests waiting around were all shrewd people. Naturally, he had seen the gatekeeper's reaction just now. Someone asked curiously, "Who is the person in the carriage?" The gatekeeper must have seen the name on the invitation, which was why he showed such a terrified expression. The gatekeeper's expression changed. He said solemnly, "Everyone, please don't ask too much. That man likes silence." After the carriage entered the Joyful Heart sect, a manservant came forward to stop the carriage for them. Yi Qing Luo had just alighted from the carriage when she heard Lanling Nuo's sweet laughter. Yi Qing Luo looked over. Indeed, not far ahead, Lanling Nuo and Xia Lingling were surrounded by a group of young ladies. It was unknown what they were talking about, but they would occasionally laugh. Butler Yin stood at the side respectfully, but Yi Qing Luo could tell. There was displeasure in Butler Yin's eyes. Yi Qing Luo glanced lightly at the two who were still teasing the other young ladies, squinted her charming eyes, and sneered coldly. Lanling Nuo and Xia Lingling didn't look like fools. Why couldn't he think straight at such a crucial moment? After all, this was the Qinyu sect. It was the birthday of the sect master of the Qinyu sect. He had the busy butler run to the door to welcome the two of them. He wanted to mediate between the two of them and avoid unnecessary disputes. On the other hand, Xiao Lingling and Lanling Nuo wanted to show off their status in the eyes of the sect master of the Qinyu sect. Regardless of whether what Steward Yin had said about the sect leader thinking about the two princesses was true or not, these words came out. They were two juniors who had come to offer their blessings. No matter what, the sect master should be the most important. No matter what it was, he would have to wait until he met the sect master first. However, the two of them deliberately walked very slowly, and along the way, They even greeted people with all sorts of haughty noises. What's more, they gathered together with the rich young ladies and flaunted their nobility. He really didn't know whether to laugh at their stupidity or not. Or were the two of them so thoroughly brainwashed by their uncle monarch that their brains were damaged? Did he really think that the identity of the royal family was unique and honorable in the world? What are you laughing at? Yin Xiao, he came down from the carriage and asked casually. Yiqing Luo shot a glance towards Lan Ling Nua's direction. Yin Xiao, he looked over and her beautiful eyes widened. Tisk, these two people's brains must have been kicked by a donkey? The truth had proven that Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling's brains had indeed been kicked by a donkey. The two of them looked over at the same time. The people over there naturally sensed something. Chapter 25-20. Lowly commoner, how did you manage to sneak in? Xia Lingling frowned and glanced at Xiao Jin with a face full of disdain. Do you know what this place is? A coachman dares to stand in the Qinghua sect? This is Uncle Patriarch's birthday celebration. Not any Tom, Dick, or Harry can just come in. The other 5 to 6 young misses saw Xia Lingling's attitude and asked curiously, Who is that? Which family's Missy is she from? Missy? Xia Lingling snorted coldly and sneered. Just a small powerhouse's waste, dragging her entire family to Qinghua sect, trying to build a relationship with Uncle Patriarch. Why don't you take a look at your own status first? Yiqing Luo didn't want to bother with these two silly women. She pulled Yin Xiao Yi and followed behind the carriage. But in Xia Lingling's eyes, Yiqing Luo had silently acknowledged her lowly status. Feeling ashamed and embarrassed, he wanted to escape at the last minute. Since you're so thick-skinned to get an invitation, why are you afraid of others talking about it? Xia Lingling naturally wouldn't let go of this chance to humiliate Yiqing Luo and the rest. She pulled Lan Ling Nua and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction with the other young misses. Today was the birthday celebration, and Qinghua sect was a place of freedom. The guests came and went as they chatted and socialized. Yiqing Luo and the rest were not far from the entrance of the Qinghua sect. Just a little noise, and it attracted a lot of attention. With Uncle Patriarch's support, Xia Lingling naturally wasn't afraid of the gazes from the surrounding people. Earlier at the entrance, they blocked the entrance and delayed the other guests' time, which was why they were blamed by the other guests. Now, she wanted to take revenge. She wanted to make that slut cry in shame and leave this place. Xia Lingling raised her voice and pointed at Yiqing Luo. Which continent are you from? Making this kind of carriage and trying to build a relationship with Qinghua sect. A bunch of useless waste. You're a disgrace to your continent. In order to build a good relationship with the two continents' princess, the young misses naturally stood on their side, especially when they saw the extremely ordinary carriage behind Yiqing Luo. Their hearts were filled with contempt towards Yiqing Luo and the rest. Trash from small faction. Don't embarrass yourself here. That's right. Do you really think that you can befriend the sect master just because you attended the sect master's birthday banquet? With your status, it's already a luxury to be able to see the sect master. The way I see it, these two girls are shameless enough to come to the joyful Qin sect's birthday banquet. They're probably trying to hook up with some noble young master and become his bedwarmer. Look at how they're dressed. They're obviously vixens who are here to seduce men. The words of the young ladies successfully pleased Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling. Yiqing Luo and Yin Xiao exchanged glances, expressing their innocence. Flowery? If what they were doing was considered fancy, then wouldn't this group of young ladies be so pretty that I can't look at them anymore? Each and every one of them shone with golden light, wishing that they could wear gold and silver to fill themselves up. And he still had the cheek to say that the two of them were fancy pants? His ability to lie through his teeth was also unparalleled. With their unpresentable looks, just based on their petty-minded appearances, who else are they trying to seduce? If we're talking about the prettiest today, it will be Princess Donglan and young Princess Beilan. As they spoke, the young ladies started to flatter the two princesses again. This flattery, Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nuo expressed their satisfaction. Looking at Yiqing Luo and the rest, they couldn't say a word after being criticized by the young ladies. Chapter 25-21. Lan Ling Nuo put on a high and mighty look as she held Xia Lingling's arm and walked over arrogantly. She sneered scornfully. As a person, you need to know your own limits. Don't dream about things that you can't get. Saying that, she looked at Housekeeper Een. Housekeeper Een, these people have bad intentions and their status is lowly. To let them attend the sovereign's birthday banquet, it's a disgrace to Qin Yu's sex reputation. It's better to chase them out. Housekeeper Yin's face had already turned steely green. He hadn't had the chance to speak. Lan Ling Nuo had already walked in front of Yiqing Luo as her red lips curled up complacently. But she put on a gentle and generous look. Miss Yi, it's not that I'm not willing to let you attend the sovereign's birthday banquet, but your status is simply too lowly, and it's a disgrace to Qin Yu's sex prestige. In order to protect your continent's reputation, and to protect your remaining dignity, leave Qin Yu's sect. His words were full of emotion and voice, as though the starting point of this decision was really for Yiqing Luo's own good. The young ladies behind her nodded one after another as their faces were filled with disdain and ridicule. Yiqing Luo let them speak as she smiled. The expression on her face was as calm as still water. Her quiet and seductive eyes stared straight at Lan Ling Nuo. Lan Ling Nuo's smile froze at the corner of her mouth. Lan Ling Nuo's body stiffened as her voice trembled. What are you looking at? Don't tell me what I said is wrong. Of course, Sister Nuo is right. Xia Lingling raised her head as she said proudly, Sister Nuo's suggestion is to help you retain your reputation. Don't be ungrateful. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she gave a low laugh. Her pair of charming eyes, because of her raised arc, added some enchantment. Lan Ling Nuo was jolted back a few steps. Yiqing Luo smiled slightly. Are you done? Her voice was cold, without any extra emotions. Lan Ling Nuo's nervous heart tightened. Yuji wasn't around. If this slut really made a move on her, she would definitely be at a disadvantage. No matter what, she must make them scram out of Qin Yu's sect. Lan Ling Nuo retreated a few steps and shrunk closer to Stewardine. Stewardine, take a look. Such a barbaric woman. If she really attends the sect leader's birthday banquet and offends the sect leader, what should we do? Stewardine dodged Lan Ling Nuo's outstretched hand without a trace. He was neither servile nor overbearing, but his expression was gloomy. East Wave Region Lord, everyone who comes is a guest. The Qinhua sect will not look down on anyone because of their identity. Lan Ling Nuo's expression stiffened. Stewardine, Xia Lingling instantly pulled a long face when she heard this. Are you saying that I look down on them? Butler Een bowed slightly, but didn't say anything. In other words, it was a tacit agreement. Xia Lingling's expression became extremely ugly. So what if I look down on them? Why does a lowly piece of trash have to sit in the same place and breathe the same air as me? I find it disgusting. Lan Ling Nuo also said gently, Housekeeper Een, don't hurt our friendship because of these lowly people. We're doing this in consideration for the Qinhua sect. If these people really attend the sect leader's birthday banquet, it will really affect the mood of the guests. Lan Ling Nuo's tone became heavier as she spoke. She was threatening Housekeeper Een. They were the two most pampered young region lords in the two continents. Even the Qinhua sect had to give them face and treat them as VIPs. No matter what, they wouldn't offend the two region lords just because of these sluts, right? Housekeeper Een had yet to reply. Chapter 25-22. Among the crowd, there was a 25 to 26-year-old young man dressed in a green robe. His every action was noble and elegant. When he appeared, the hubbub around them gradually quietened down. The young man walked slowly towards the direction of Yiqing Luo and the rest. The corners of his calm and handsome face curled up into a smile, but his brows were slightly furrowed. Young Sectmaster, Housekeeper Ian greeted respectfully when he saw the person approaching. The surrounding people, those with lower status, also bowed. Those with higher status cupped their hands in greeting. The young man was the young sect master of Qinyu's sect, Yin Xiu. Brother Xiu. Xiao Lingling's eyes lit up when she saw Yin Xiu, and she immediately went up to him coquettishly. Brother Xiu, are you here to fetch Lingling? Before Yin Xiu could say a word, Xiao Lingling had already continued on her own. Brother Xiu, if you don't come, Lingling will be bullied to death. That lowly commoner doesn't even put me, the princess, in her eyes. She doesn't even put the Qinyue clan in her eyes. Xiao Lingling's eyeballs turned extremely quickly as her eyes were filled with craftiness. Before she could get close to Yin Xiu, Yin Xiu had already avoided Xiao Lingling's touch. He lowered his eyes slightly as his gaze swept past Xiao Lingling calmly. Following that, he raised his eyes and fixed his gaze on the calm and composed Yi Qing Luo. Xiao Lingling didn't mind Yin Xiu's actions. She and Yin Xiu really didn't have much interaction. After all, Yin Xiu was a 25-year-old young man, and Xiao Lingling was just a 13-year-old young lady. How would they have any interaction usually? But Xiao Lingling intentionally put on this attitude, just to convey to everyone that her relationship with the royal family and Qinyu sect was good. Moreover, she took the initiative to please Yin Xiu, and on account of the royal family's face, Yin Xiu would not reject her. She had already explained everything clearly to Yin Xiu. Yin Xiu was an intelligent man, so he would definitely understand her meaning. Thinking of this, Xiao Lingling's pampered little face was filled with a complacent expression. The moment Lanling Nuo saw Yin Xiu, her heart started to palpitate. Although her ultimate target was South Continent's young sect master, Gu Jingyu. But Yin Xiu was Qinyu sect's young sect master. If she could make Yin Xiu a subject under her skirt, it would not work on Gu Jingyu's side. At the very least, she could become the wife of the Northern Wave Continent's sect master. Furthermore, Lanling Nuo could tell. Yin Xiu didn't really like Xiao Lingling. Xiao Lingling was so immersed in her own happiness that she didn't notice. She had seen it clearly. Yin Xiu's frown deepened. So, Yin Xiu didn't come here and speak up for them because of Xiao Lingling. It was because of her identity as the East Wave County Lord that she had rushed over. She was the incomparably noble Eastern Lan County Lord. Everyone had to give face to Dong Lan. Yin Xiu definitely wanted to establish a good relationship with the royal family of the East Billow region. Lanling Nuo had always been confident about her looks. She was also certain that she could use her looks to make Yin Xiu fall in love with her. Hence, she adjusted her most gentle and magnanimous smile and gracefully walked to Xiao Lingling's side, hooking her arm. Lingling, don't be angry. Young sect master Ian is here to stand up for you. Don't get angry over those Tom, Dick, and Harry. Immediately, she looked at Yin Xiu with tender affection. However, she realized that Yin Xiu didn't even look at her. Chapter 25-23. Lanling Nuo's expression froze. She clenched her fists tightly and put on a gentle smile as she slowly walked towards Yi Qing Luo. Yin Xiu's gaze fell on Yi Qing Luo. She then walked into Yin Xiu's line of sight. Lanling Nuo walked in an enchanting manner. She was extremely charming. Very quickly, she stopped in front of Yi Qing Luo and gave her a contemptuous glance. See that? This is the young matriarch of Qinyue sect. Just based on your lowly status, to be able to meet the young matriarch of Qinyue sect, it's all because of me. Saying that, she changed into a smiling look as she looked at Yin Xiu. Young matriarch, don't bother with these lowly people. It's a disgrace to your Qinyue sect status. Lanling Nuo's tone was filled with complacency, not knowing what she was proud of. Hearing Xiao Lingling and Lanling Nuo echoing each other's words, Yi Qing couldn't hold it in any longer as he laughed out loud. Had these two ladies' brains been kicked by a donkey? Were they too arrogant towards their own status? Or were they brain-damaged and blind, totally unable to read Yin Xiu's expression? Lanling Nuo frowned slightly. Why did Yi Luo's laughter seem to contain a hint of ridicule? To be able to meet the young matriarch of Qinghua sect. This was already the fortune she had cultivated in her past life. She actually put on a scornful expression. Ever since the incident at the Peach Blossom restaurant, Lanling Nuo had specially inquired about this red-robed young lady's news. Yi Luo and the lady she hated, not only were they dressed the same, even their names were different by one word. But Yi Luo's identity was just an ordinary academy student who had obtained the academy's permission to travel to the North Continent. An ordinary student, sitting in such an ordinary horse carriage. Other than a horse groom, he didn't even have a follower. No matter how she looked at it, Yi Luo was just a powerless and nameless nobody. Compared to a pampered princess like her, it was like heaven and earth. Lanling Nuo totally didn't put Yi Luo in her eyes. Brother Xiao, didn't housekeeper Yin mention earlier that Uncle Sectmaster is concerned about me and Sister Nuo? Come on, let's go to Uncle Sect Leader's place. Just leave these lowly commoners to the servants to handle. Xiao Lingling saw that Yin Yinxiu didn't say anything and was getting a little impatient. I can't stand staying in the same place with this kind of person for so long. That's true. The clear male voice was extremely deep. Lanling Nuo and Xiao Lingling were stunned. Soon after, his face lit up with joy. Brother Xiao, young Sectmaster. You think so too, right? Yin Yinxiu, who had been silent all this while, faintly flashed a cold light in his eyes. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. This person, he was a ruthless person. He was definitely not as noble and refined as he appeared on the surface. However, from the looks of it, this person could not be considered an enemy. He was also a smart man. Lanling Nuo and Xia Lingling couldn't wait to see the scene of Yi Luo and the others being chased out by the young sectmaster of the Qinghua sect, who asked that slut to be arrogant and despotic. How dare that slut embarrass them in public? Now, let's see who's the one who's embarrassed. Immediately, the two princesses looked at Housekeeper Yin. Housekeeper Yin, did you hear that? Your young sectmaster has already spoken. Why aren't you taking action? Housekeeper Yin didn't reply, only looking at Yin Yinxiu. On seeing Yin Yinxiu nodding his head slightly, he then got someone to bring over 10 patrolling guards. Looking at those 10 over guards' aggressive looks, Lanling Nuo's mood was delighted. This is the consequence of not knowing your own limits. Chapter 25-24. But the smiles on their faces didn't last for long, only to see 10 over guards walking up to them, one on the left and one on the right, lifting the both of them up. Hey, you've caught the wrong person. Let go of me. How dare you? Lanling Nuo was lifted up by the two guards, and her feet couldn't touch the ground as she frantically scolded them. Xiao Lingling was so infuriated that her face turned red. You dare to lay a hand on me? Do you believe that I will ask Uncle Monarch to chop off your heads? Let go of me. But no matter how they shouted and scolded, they were firmly held down by the guards, unable to move at all. The both of them were shouting and scolding, but Yin Yinxiu's expression remained calm as he didn't say a word. Because of Xiao Lingling and Lanling Nuo's status, it was such a clamor at the main entrance. Adding on to the fact that Yin Yinxiu was here, the guests who were crowding around to watch the show were almost packed. There were quite a number of guests who had been queuing up at the entrance, watching the show from the start till the end. Seeing Xiao Lingling and Lanling Nuo being held up by the guards without any energy to retaliate, they started laughing. When one person laughed, 100 people laughed at the same time. Xiao Lingling and Lanling Nuo were both annoyed and ashamed when they heard the laughter. Xiao Lingling felt so wrong that her tears started to fall. Lanling Nuo was still considered to have some rationality as she bit her lower lip tightly as she stared hatefully at Yiqing Luo. Following that, she pitifully softened her voice as she sobbed softly. Young sect matriarch, your subordinates have captured the wrong people. Tell them to let me and Lingling off, all right? Yin Yinxiu's brows raised slightly as he looked at her. Lanling Nuo was delighted as she tried her best to act pitiful. I'm in so much pain from their grabbing. Young sect master, ask them to let me off. Ling Ling, and I will absolutely not haggle over them capturing us wrongly. You didn't capture the wrong person. A calm voice interrupted Lan Ling Nua's words. Lan Ling Nua was stunned, as though she couldn't react in time. She saw Yin Yinxio looking at her fixedly with obvious disgust in his eyes. Eastlan Region Lord and Little Region Lord don't feel that this Qin US sect is disgusting, feeling that it affects your mood and feeling that you can't take it any longer? If that's the case, this young sect master will grant your wish and send you away from the Qin Yu sect, lest you offend the two of them. I. Lan Ling Nua's face flushed red from Yin Yinxio's words. These words were indeed said by her to Xia Lingling. Everyone present heard it. They couldn't deny it. At this moment, no matter how stupid Lan Ling Nua was, she understood. Yin Yinxio wasn't there to help her and Xia Lingling. Instead, he was here to help that slut, Yi Luo. A slut will always be a slut. She actually hooked up with young sect master. Yin Yinxio took in the sinister look on Lan Ling Nua's face and frowned slightly. He didn't feel any pity for this idiot princess who only knew how to cause trouble and bully others with her power. He glanced sideways and looked at Yi Qing Luo. Dear guests, sorry to have disturbed your mood. Today's unhappiness at Qin Yu Clan will definitely compensate you in the future. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled up as she politely nodded her head. Many thanks to young sect master for helping us out of this predicament. Yin Yinxio's gaze was burning as he stared at Yi Qing Luo's face, and after some time, his smile deepened. We should be the ones apologizing for delaying everyone's time. I'll bring you to the main hall to take your seats. Then we'll have to trouble young sect master. Yi Qing Luo didn't reject Yin Yinxio's kind intentions. After all, young sect master would personally send them to the main hall. There would definitely not be anyone who would find trouble with them on the way. They weren't afraid of trouble. But this was Qin Yu sect's patriarch's birthday banquet. Chapter 25. When the crowd saw Yin Yinxio's courteous look towards Yi Qing Luo and the rest, they couldn't help but started to guess their identities. Especially the young miss who had ridiculed Yi Qing Luo and the rest in order to please the two princesses earlier. Her face turned pale as she scolded the two princesses harshly in her heart. She also pushed this debt onto the two princesses. It was all their fault for not recognizing Mount Tai. They actually treated young sect masters, distinguished guests, as people from small forces, causing them to humiliate the distinguished guests. Those who were able to enter Qin Yu Clan today, even the lowest status, was a small force which had a place in the pugilistic world. Among the crowd, there were naturally many distinguished people, not knowing if Yin Yinxio did it on purpose. Those few guards were holding Lan Ling Nua, and Xia Lingling stood rooted on the spot and didn't leave. They allowed the onlookers to point at them and snicker at them. Apparently, they wanted everyone to see Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling's embarrassing looks, especially when there were many distinguished guests who had just entered Qin Yu Clan's residence. They couldn't help but ask about the reason when they saw this scene. 1 to 10, 10 to 100. The originally bustling Qin Yu Clan became even more lively. Even if there were people from the East Continent, when they walked past, they intentionally pretended that they didn't know the princess who was held up by the guards and had lost all her face. Since when had Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling suffered such humiliation? They had always been envied by the crowd. He had always stood in the crowd and laughed at others from high above. But now, this bunch of lowly people actually dared to stand by the side and laugh at them? This bunch of lowly people, how could they be compared to Uncle Monarch? They didn't save them, didn't plead for them, and even laughed at them. Lan Ling Nua's arrogant and conceited heart had suffered a serious blow. Everything was because of that slut Yi Luo, secretly seducing the young sect master of Qin Yu Clan, and even pretended that she didn't know Yin Yinxio. Was he intentionally making fun of her? What a Qin Yu Clan! What a Yi Luo! When she returned to the East Continent, she would make Qin Yu Clan fall completely. What four great sects? Did they really think they were something? seeing Yin Yinxiu gently and elegantly accompanying Yi Qing Luo towards that ordinary-looking carriage, as though he was talking to the person in the carriage. Immediately after, Yin Yinxiu personally pulled the reins of the carriage with a face full of smiles. One had to know, after entering the Joy Clan residence, regardless of whether it was a carriage or a sedan, it had to be carried to a special place for carriages and sedan. No matter who it was, they were not allowed to use carriages in the Qinghua sect. But unexpectedly, the young sect master of the Qinyu sect actually took the initiative to lead the way for the person in the carriage. Who was the person in the carriage? How could he have such a great reputation? The honored guests recalled how Lanling Nuo and Xia Lingling called them lowly commoners and said the people in the carriage were lowly commoners with no status or status. Just by looking at Yin Yinxiu's attitude, it could be understood. The person in the carriage was not someone an ordinary person could afford to offend. TSK, he wondered if the two princesses' faces hurt. He felt the mocking and disdainful gazes coming from all directions. All of them seemed to be laughing at them for overestimating themselves. Lanling Nuo was so infuriated that her entire body was trembling. She wanted to struggle, but she couldn't break free from the restraints of the guards. Chapter 25-26. Following Lanling Nuo's call, the surrounding guests automatically made way for them. Immediately, a group of about 15 people were trying to sneak away from this conspicuous place. But unfortunately, Lanling Nuo's call. Even if they wanted to sneak away, it was impossible. Prime Minister's son, stop hiding. I know it's you. Hurry up and come over here to save me. Lanling Nuo shrieked angrily when she saw that group of people still cowering in fear. This Prime Minister's son wasn't anyone else. He was the East Water Continent's Prime Minister's son who they met when they went to the Treasure Pavilion's auction to retrieve the Sky Yuan serene grass. When Prime Minister's son heard Lanling Nuo's voice, he was so angry that his body trembled. He tensed his body, not wanting to bother about Lanling Nuo at all. One must know that Qinghua sect's sovereign's birthday banquet should be attended by him as the Prime Minister. But Lanling Nuo insisted on joining in the fun. The monarch favored Lanling Nuo, and he also had the idea of having Lanling Nuo serve as the representative of the East Water Continent's imperial family to consolidate their power. Prime Minister's son almost went bankrupt when he bid for the Sky Yuan serene grass, and was beaten back to the third stage by Yi Qing Luo. Today, his prime minister position was in jeopardy. He had racked his brains to stabilize his position as prime minister. He also wanted to befriend Qinghua sect's sovereign. After the monarch announced Lanling Nuo as the East Water Continent's royal family's representative, he used his Sun family's identity to come to the North Water Continent. He didn't expect their East Water Continent's princess had created such a huge mess. It wasn't something that his Sun family could handle, but Lanling Nuo actually stopped him in front of everyone to help Lanling Nuo, which would definitely offend Qinghua sect. After all, Lanling Nuo's current situation was obviously done intentionally by Qinghua sect's young matriarch. Not helping, it would only make the East Water Continent's royal family a laughingstock. The East Water Continent's royal family would become the laughingstock of the Nirvana realm. Prime Minister's son, the young sect master of the Great Elation sect, actually dared to treat me in such a manner. For the sake of a lowly person, you don't even put the East Wave Imperial clan in your eyes. Do you still want to sit back and watch? Don't tell me. You want to see our East Wave Imperial family being trampled on by anyone. When Lanling Nuo saw that Prime Minister's son still hadn't come over, she angrily roared again. Her eyes were bloodshot and filled with rage. Prime Minister's son broke out in a cold sweat. Previously, he was still hesitating whether he should come forward to plead for Lanling Nuo. As soon as Lanling Nuo said this, he didn't need to hesitate at all. Princess, as the representative of the East Wave Imperial family, you should show the demeanor of the East Wave continent when you attend the birthday banquet of the sect leader of the Qinghua sect. How can you make such a ruckus in the Elation sect? Prime Minister Sun frowned and rebuked her with a look of exasperation. Your Highness, before we set off, I have taught you many times about etiquette. You are a disgrace to the royal family. Lanling Nuo was mocked and ridiculed by the people around her. At this moment, even the Prime Minister of the imperial family dared to point at her nose and criticize her. How could Lanling Nuo accept this? How dare you? Do you think that I'm someone who you can criticize? Prime Minister's son, if you don't ask these people to let me go, I will ask my cousin, the Emperor, to remove your position as Prime Minister when I return to the East Wave continent. Chapter 25-27. Lanling Nuo was so angry that her eyes turned red. She struggled to grab Prime Minister Sunday. However, the guards held her tightly. She gritted her teeth and shouted, "Let go of me! Let go of me right now!" Prime Minister Sun's eyes were cold. He wanted to turn around and leave. He did not want to have anything to do with this disgraceful princess. However, in the next moment, he saw that Yin, who was walking in front of him, had stopped and was looking at him. Prime Minister Sun's heart tightened. The reason why he came to the North Wave continent to attend the faction leader's birthday banquet was to build a good relationship with the Qinghua faction. Now, he finally had the chance to talk to the young faction leader of the Qinghua faction. He could not miss this opportunity no matter what. Prime Minister Sun suddenly turned around and walked toward Yin. Young faction leader. Do you want to plead for the princess of the East Wave continent? Yin rarely spoke directly. The words that he was about to say were stuck in his throat. Prime Minister Sun hesitated for a moment and said, "Yes." Yin interrupted him again. "You can plead for her, but take her away." Prime Minister Sun was stunned. His face turned slightly pale. The meaning of Yin words was obvious. If he pleaded for Lanling Nuo, he would leave the Qinghua faction together with him. Prime Minister Sun wouldn't take such a risk with his future. He could only hang his head bitterly. Lanling Nuo also heard Yin words. She could not believe it. Yin would treat her like this because of those be asterisk cheese. He did not even give her a chance. Why did he have to let her suffer such humiliation in front of everyone? Did he know that what he was doing now, was it enough to destroy the rest of her life? If what happened today were to spread, not to mention becoming the madam of the faction leader, even if she wanted to marry someone in the future, no one would be interested in her. No. She could not ruin herself like this. She was the most pampered princess in the East Wave continent. Her existence was revered by tens of thousands of people. Young sect leader, is this how the Qinghua sect treats its guests? You said it yourself. Everyone who comes here is a guest. My East Wave Imperial clan was personally invited by your Qinghua sect's sect master. Now that you're treating me like this, doesn't that represent your Qinghua sect's attitude toward the East Wave Imperial clan? Lanling Nuo raised her voice and enunciated each word venomously. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding people all sucked in a breath of cold air. As for Lanling Nuo, he silently swore to himself that he must stay away from such a person in the future. It was clear that she was relying on the power of the East Wave Imperial clan to bully the guests who came to attend the birthday banquet. She didn't give the sect master of the Qinghua sect any face. Now, they were still trying to invert right and wrong, claiming that it was the Qinghua sect that was disrespectful to the East Wave Imperial clan. Just how shameless was this princess of the East Wave region? In the eyes of the four great sects, the East Wave Imperial family was nothing. Even the emperors of the four royal families were standing here. The four great sects weren't afraid. All right? The four great sects. The legendary tomb keeper of the divine emperor. His status was outstanding and his identity was honorable. How could a princess of the imperial clan be compared to the young sect master of the four great sects? Who doesn't know that the B*TCH called Yi Luo had secretly colluded with you? Didn't she just whisper in your ear for a few days? As the young sect master of the Qinghua sect, why would you lower yourself to cooperate with a lowly commoner and create a mysterious and honorable identity for her? Chapter 25-28. When Lanling Nuo said that, the crowd went into an uproar, although they didn't really believe Lanling Nuo's words. But the crowd couldn't control themselves as they shot suspicious gazes towards Yin Yinxiu and Yiqing Luo. Yin Yinxiu didn't expect Lanling Nuo to say such shameless words. His face sunk, and the gaze he shot towards Lanling Nuo was filled with disgust. "You're the East Lan princess. How dare you spout nonsense and slander others? As a lady, you should know clearly how important reputation is to a lady. You actually used such a vicious method to ruin a lady's reputation. This young matriarch has learned something new about your East Lan royal family's teachings." Yin Yinxiu's words seemed to be squeezed out from the slits of his teeth. Apparently, he was really infuriated. Lanling Nuo's eyes were filled with viciousness as she sneered, "I'm merely speaking the truth. If it wasn't for the fact that you have an affair with her, would she be able to stand here today?" She scoffed coldly in disdain. Following that, she gave a sinister smile. "Young matriarch, today you've embarrassed the East Lan royal family just because of a slut. This princess will not let this matter rest." Yin Yinxiu's expression sunk once again as his face turned steely green. Perhaps this was the first time he had met such a barbaric lady. Just as he was about to speak, Yiqing Luo's light voice was heard from behind. "Young matriarch need not be angry. In my eyes, she's merely a clown trying to please the crowd." She slowly walked past Yin Yinxiu and towards Lanling Nuo. The smile on her lips was filled with a hair-raising ridicule. "East Lan princess, you think I'm not qualified to stand here? And not qualified to attend the birthday banquet?" Lanling Nuo was frightened by her smile. She shrank backwards as she kept trembling. But on seeing Yiqing Luo's pair of smiling yet not smiling eyes, she mustered up her courage as she rebuked, "Yes. Based on your status, if not for the fact that you've hooked up with young matriarch, how could you possibly stand here? TSK. Then what does East Lan princess think is considered as qualified?" Yiqing Luo touched her chin as she asked with a smile. Lanling Nuo bared her teeth in anger. Joy sect is one of the 4 major sects and is incomparably respectable. Those who attend matriarch's birthday banquet are at least famous in the pugilistic world and have outstanding status. You, an ordinary student who hasn't even graduated, what right do you have? Based on the fact that I am qualified." Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she slowly fished out a red invitation card. He held it between his index and middle fingers and waved it in front of Lanling Nuo's eyes. "I just want to ask you a few questions. Do you think that the 3,000 Peach Blossom Mercenary Group can be considered famous in the world of martial artists and is a force that has the right to attend the birthday banquet?" When Lanling Nuo saw the invitation, her face was full of disdain. But upon hearing Yiqing Luo's question, she went into a daze. Right, 3,000 peaches. How could she forget that Yiqing Luo and the leader of the 3,000 peach blossoms had a close relationship? Lanling Nuo's face paled. Yiqing Luo smiled even more brilliantly. When the surrounding people heard the words 3,000 peach blossoms, they all expressed that they were absolutely qualified. The 3,000 Peach Blossom was only a silver mercenary group. Moreover, there weren't many of them. However, the 3,000 Peach Blossoms were the target that every major clan and faction wanted to curry favor with. It could be said that the distinguished guests present, they all wanted to make friends with the 3,000 Peach Blossoms. Chapter 25-29. Lanling Nuo's pale lips trembled. A wave of lingering fear and uneasiness swept through his body and mind. She trembled, and her face was deathly pale. How could she dare to bring such a matter to the sect master? If he didn't know about the close relationship between Yi Luo and 3,000 Peach Blossoms, she might really go to the sect master's place to make a scene. But the 3,000 Peach Blossoms were willing to go against the warlord's residence for Yi Luo. It was obvious that 3,000 Peach Blossoms and Yi Luo were very close. Looking at East Lawn Juanju's expression, it seems like she doesn't want to bring this matter to Sovereign. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes as she looked down at the disheveled her with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. Lanling Nuo was filled with humiliation, and her eyes were bloodshot. Yiqing Luo straightened her waist as she closed the invitation card and continued with a beaming smile. And today is Sovereign's birthday celebration. How can such a small matter be brought to Sovereign's attention and affect Sovereign's mood? Her words caused the surrounding onlookers to nod their heads in admiration. He also had a better impression of this girl in red. The eyes of the crowd were sharp. Everyone could see that. It was the East Wave County Lord who had been pestering the red-clothed girl. Time and time again, he provoked trouble and spoke rudely. If it were them, they would have sent the East Wave County Lord back to the East Wave continent with a slap and become the high and mighty county lord. That red-clothed girl's temper was still good. She tolerated it time and time again, not wanting to disturb the sect master's birthday. However, the princess of the East Wave County Lord was overbearing and even spread rumors that there was an affair between the young lady and the young sect master. This kind of rumor, how much damage should it cause to a woman? Everyone felt that Yiqing Luo was wholeheartedly putting up with it for the sake of Sovereign's birthday banquet. But how would Lanling Nuo not know that Yiqing Luo said these words in order to slap her face? The 3,000 peach blossoms. Could it be that the 3,000 peach blossoms gave a coachman the right to enter? Xiao Lingling was indignant. Seeing that Lanling Nuo didn't speak, she glared at Xiao Jin. Even if Yiqing Luo had the right to attend the Sovereign's birthday banquet, they also wanted to pick a fight. What right did Yi Luo and his group have to attend the sect master's birthday banquet in peace? As a dignified princess, was she going to be asked to leave the Qin Yu sect by Yin Yinxiu in such an embarrassing manner? Dream on. If you want to be humiliated, then let's be humiliated together. As soon as Xiao Lingling said this, everyone's eyes focused on Xiao Jin. The onlookers were all people with good eyesight. Although Xiao Jin looked ordinary and wore ordinary clothes. However, his temperament was that of someone who had just descended into the mortal world. In addition, Xiao Jin's side was snuggling with a pretty girl who was bright and beautiful. How was it possible that he was just an ordinary groom? However, how could Xiao Lingling see through his temperament? She only knew that the groom was ugly and dressed very plainly. How could a nobody like him participate in the birthday banquet of the Qin US sect master? But they were going to be driven out? This princess and all of you have brought servants and guards with us. After entering the Qin Yue clan manor, we can't even bring a personal maid with us. Why can her coachman come with us? Xiao Lingling struggled against the restraints of her arms, gritting her teeth and roaring. Looking at Xiao Lingling's hysterical look, Yiqing Luo's lips curled up as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Who told you that he's only a coachman? He obviously. Xiao Lingling recalled that Yiqing Luo had taken out the 3,000 peach blossoms invitation as her face turned pale. Could it be that that person wasn't a coachman? Chapter 25:30. Xiao Jin embraced Yan Xiao Yi's slender waist as a trace of a smile appeared on his ordinary face. That smile was meaningful, but it also revealed a trace of coldness. Xiao Lingling felt a chill down her spine. For some inexplicable reason, a feeling of exhaustion welled up in his body. Yan Xiao Yi stretched out her hand and circled it around Xiao Jin's neck, her charming face full of smiles. Slut Jin, I asked you to wear the academy uniform, but you refused to do so. Look, the noble little princess has even mistaken you for a coachman. Academy uniform? Xiao Lingling caught the keyword. However, he still did not understand the significance of the academy uniform. When Yan Xiao Yi saw this, her beautiful eyes curved as her other hand reached into Xiao Jin's robes and took out a red invitation. She flicked her finger. The red invitation flew straight away like a whirlwind. Yiqing Luo raised her hand, and the invitation steadily landed in her palm. The invitation happened to open in his palm. Xia Lingling and Lanling Nuo could clearly see themselves in the mirror. Heavenly Academy's representatives, Qiao Jin, Yin Xiao Yi, and Mo Yuing. Heavenly Academy's representative? Heavenly Academy. Nirvana Realm had been named the best academy for several years. The best academy that had saved countless academies in the South Continent and produced a savior. Heavenly Academy. These people looked so young. No matter how he looked at it, he was at most a student of the Heavenly Academy. How was it possible to be the representative of the Heavenly Academy to attend the Sovereign's birthday banquet? So, they are the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. As expected of the best academy. I didn't expect that a student who hasn't even graduated can already be a representative. To be looked upon so highly by the academy at such a young age, he will definitely achieve great things in the future, whether it was sincere or just a compliment. The surrounding people all praised Xiao Jin and the others for being young and promising. These words were like needles that pierced Xia Lingling and Lanling Nuo. They never would have thought this ordinary-looking man was actually the representative of the Heavenly Academy. Obviously, 3,000 peach blossoms and the best academy. Yet, he purposely took this ordinary carriage to attend the birthday banquet. They did it on purpose. It was probably a scheme to embarrass them. If Yiqing Luo knew what they were thinking, she would be speechless. These two retards thought that everyone had to be as retarded as them, decorating themselves like Christmas trees and decorating themselves magnificently. Attend a birthday banquet? She could take whichever carriage she wanted. What did it have to do with the two of them? Furthermore, if the two of them hadn't come looking for trouble, would they have ended up like this? He could only say, retardation was an illness that needed to be treated. If he didn't do it, he wouldn't die. Yiqing Luo looked smilingly at the two retards. Now, both of you, do you have any more questions? Or do you want to know if the people in my carriage are qualified to stand here? How could the two of them dare to speak again? It didn't matter how many people were in the carriage or whether they were qualified. Just based on the identity of the 3,000 peach blossoms and the representative of the Heavenly Academy, she was already qualified to stand here. If they insisted on asking everyone in the carriage to come down and verify their identities, they were afraid that in the end, they would not only lose face. Don't delay the Sovereign's birthday banquet. Let's hurry to the main hall. Yin Xiao Yi wasn't interested in these two retards as she pulled Xiao Jin back to the side of the carriage. This time, no one dared to open their mouths to find trouble. The show ended. Everyone dispersed. But this time, everyone's discussion was no longer about trying to build relationships with each other. Instead, they were guessing the identity of the red-robed young lady. Chapter 25:31. Yin Yinxiu continued to pull the carriage while Yiqing Luo and the rest walked beside the carriage. After a few steps, Yiqing Luo suddenly looked at Yin Yinxiu and looked at those two disheveled princesses who were being restrained by the guards, as she spoke out with good intentions. Young Sectmaster, to send these two noble princesses back to the royal family. No matter what, they are also princess with a respectable status. Yin Yinxiu raised his brows and nodded slightly. The guards who were restraining the two princesses finally carried them towards the entrance of the Qingyue clan's residence. More than 10 guards let out a sharp, piercing scream of a lady. Instantly, it attracted the attention of numerous people. Hence, the various forces who were still queuing up saw the Qingyue clan's guards carrying the two princesses and directly throwing them out of the Qingyue clan's residence. Following that, a guard brought over a dilapidated carriage. Lanling Nuo and Xia Lingling's gazes were fixed on that carriage as their faces revealed a terrified expression. If you dare to treat me like this. Xia Lingling was so anxious that she cried, "Let go of me. I will go back myself. I don't need you to send me off." The guard forcefully pushed the both of them onto the carriage. This carriage could no longer be described as dilapidated. There wasn't even a lid on the carriage. Both of them sat in the carriage, and their upper bodies were completely exposed. Young sect master has ordered me to personally send these two distinguished princesses back to the royal palace. From now on, you're not allowed to step into the Chinue clan. That guard's loud voice resounded throughout the Chinue clan's residence. The crowd was in an uproar. These two princesses had offended the young sect master of the Chinue clan and were chased out. The crowd was getting more and more curious. What on earth had these two princesses done? They actually allowed the young sect master to disregard the relationship between the royal family and Chinue clan and humiliate them? To sit in such a carriage all the way back to the royal family. It could be said that the reputation of these two princesses, as well as the reputation of the two continents' royal families, was completely ruined. Two retards have been sent away. Yiqing Luo expressed that even the air had become much fresher. She glanced at Yanxiu, who was calmly pulling the horse's reins, and didn't engage in any conversation. In her heart, she had a better impression of him. The young sect master of the Qinyu sect was a smart person. Of course, Yiqing Luo didn't think that Yanxiu would appear here to stand out for them, even at the cost of offending the royal family. It was really just because of the phrase, "Everyone who comes is a guest." A person in a high position would always do everything for their own benefit. If he didn't guess wrong, Yanxiu would rush over. It should be the gatekeeper who saw a certain name on the invitation card and immediately informed Yanxiu about this person's identity, as well as the news of Yiqing Luo and the others clashing with the two princesses. However, from Yanxiu's appearance until now, there was not the slightest hint of trying to curry favor with him. They were extremely well-behaved. She liked dealing with smart people. Yiqing Luo thought of Yi Fengyu, who was far away in the West Continent, as her lips curled into an extremely shallow smile. If it was possible, she really hoped that Xiaoyu could become good friends with the young sect master of the Qinyu sect. "What are you smiling about, Miss Yi?" Yanxiu's gaze swept over the smile on her lips and asked gently. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways as her brows arched. Maybe she felt that young sect master is someone who can befriend and is happy that she has another friend. Yanxiu also laughed softly. Chapter 25-32. Miaogu family. Miao Rongrong's brows were tightly knitted. Her meticulous makeup couldn't hide her pale complexion. She was supported by a maidservant, her delicate body slightly trembling. That slut, she actually dares to appear here. Who exactly is she? Why even the young sect master is on her side? Miao Zhengwei's eyes were sinister as he recalled that not long ago at the Peach Blossom restaurant, he felt Yiqing Luo's power as he suppressed his voice. That lady called Yi Luo isn't simple. For young sect master to help her, there are only two possibilities. What? Miao Rongrong's face twisted. Firstly, Yi Luo's status is above the imperial clan. That's why the young sect master is willing to offend the imperial clan to protect Yi Luo. Miao Zhengwei analyzed rationally. Secondly, there's someone in the carriage that even the Qinyu clan is wary of. Miao Rongrong clenched her fists, her eyes filled with jealousy. Rongrong. Miao Zhengwei held Miao Rongrong's shoulders and sternly said, "The poison in your body can no longer be suppressed. You must find her to detoxify you." Miao Rongrong gritted her teeth. She hated that bitch to death, but now she still had to beg that bitch. How could she lose face like this? Someone that even the young sect master of the joyful Qin sect wants to curry favor with must have an extraordinary identity. Becoming enemies with Yi Luo will only affect our Miaogu clan. Patriarch is a very good example. Miao Zhengwei increased the strength in his hand and said, "Rongrong, don't you want to be the Miao tribe's saintess?" "I wanna." Miao Rongrong's eyes were filled with hatred. He thought of his father's pathetic state when he escaped from the forbidden land of the Miao tribe. Her hatred towards Yiqing Luo grew. "I know what to do." Miao Zhengwei loosened his grip and said, "Yi Luo needs your strength to help him suppress the goo poison. You can use this to repair your relationship with Yi Luo." As long as you can build a relationship with Yi Luo, you will definitely become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. Miao Rongrong was a little worried, but the ancient goo worm has not been found yet. Miao Zhengwei interrupted Miao Rongrong. The ancient goo insect. The patriarch will think of a way. What you need to do now is to stabilize your image and win the right to be selected as the holy maiden. Wind Valley Sect. Gu Jingyu slowly retracted his gaze from Yiqing Luo. He looked down at his empty hand and felt an inexplicable sense of melancholy. Young sect master, do you know that girl? The great elder of the Wind Valley sect asked in a low voice. Earlier, when Gu Jingyu saw Lan Ling Nuo and Xia Lingling clashing with Yiqing Luo, he obviously wanted to speak up for Yiqing Luo. If he hadn't stopped her, Gu Jingyu reckoned that he had already offended the royal families of both continents. Their Wind Valley sect had always not interfered in any power struggles. Even though they could tell that their young sect master was interested in that young lady, they couldn't help it. It was also impossible for him to let his young sect leader stand up for that girl. Gu Jingyu did not answer. His 5 fingers curled up little by little and clenched tightly into a fist. Great Elder Gu sighed softly. Young sect master, look at the big picture. Don't forget what the Imperial Advisor taught you before you came here. At the mention of the Imperial Tutor, Gu Jingyu's calm eyes had some fluctuations. Master said that on this trip, I will meet with the biggest calamity in this lifetime. Perhaps this is my calamity. He muttered softly as his voice sounded as though he had realized something. Great Elder Gu opened his mouth, but when he saw Gu Jingyu's gloomy eyes, he sighed in the end. Chapter 25:33. Grand Elder Gu glanced at the dispersing crowd and whispered, "Let's enter, young lord." Gu Jingyu allowed Great Elder Gu to pull him toward the lobby. His mind was filled with the image of Yin Yinxiu pulling the carriage and showing great respect to everyone inside. He thought bitterly in his heart, could the person in the carriage be Miss Yi Luo's fiancé? The Joy Clan manor was indeed huge. It was no wonder that the sect master would hold the birthday banquet in the sect manor. They followed Yin Yinxiu for about the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn. Finally, they arrived at the lobby, to be personally received by the young sect master, and to be seated in a horse-drawn carriage all the way to the main hall. It could be said that he was the first person to attend the birthday banquet today. Therefore, when the group of people arrived at the lobby, it instantly attracted the attention of countless people. The birthday banquet had yet to officially begin. The sect master of the Great Pleasure Sect, Yin Qinghao, was wearing a birthday robe with a crown on his head. He had a joyous smile on his face as he chatted with someone. He was obviously in an extremely good mood. Yiqing Luo spotted 2 familiar faces standing beside the Qingyue sect's sect master. The Miao tribe leader, Miao Yixiong, general of the War King's mansion, Yuan Zhan. Yiqing Luo raised her brows in astonishment. Wasn't the War King general imprisoned in the Imperial Palace? Why would he appear at the sect master's birthday banquet? The Imperial family would actually give the War King's mansion a chance to make a comeback? No, that's not right. The representative of the Northern Wave Imperial family had already been taken by Xia Lingling. It was definitely not the royal family's idea for the warlord's mansion to be here. Instead, congratulating the Qingyue sect's sect master in the name of the War King, looking at the atmosphere between Yuan Zhan and Yin Qinghao. From the looks of it, their relationship was not bad. Yiqing Luo and the others were simply too eye-catching. At this moment, Yuan Zhan was absent-minded. He immediately saw the approaching carriage. His gaze was fixed on a red figure walking beside the horse carriage. For a moment, the anger that had accumulated in his chest surged to his heart. It was that bitch, that bastard Yi Luo, that slut who destroyed his War King's mansion and caused him to be controlled by the Imperial family. How dare she come here? Brother Yuan, what's wrong? Yin Qinghao sensed the anger coming from Yuan Zhan, so he was a bit surprised. Yuan Zhan clenched his fists. His muscles tightened, as if he hadn't heard Yin Qinghao's voice. Yin Qinghao followed Yuan Zhan's gaze. Then, he saw his son pulling a carriage over. In Qinghao had received the news long ago. In Yinxiu went out of his way to welcome a big shot who had come to his birthday banquet. Thinking of that big shot, In Qinghao immediately stood up and was about to take the initiative to welcome them. However, In Qinghao had not lifted his foot. A gust of cold wind blew past him. Yuan Zhan, who had been full of hostility, was already charging towards the carriage. His aura was aggressive and filled with a dense chill. In Qinghao's heart thumped. Judging from Yuan Zhan's attitude, it was obvious that he had a grudge against the person in the carriage. The person sitting in the carriage was a distinguished guest. Even the four major sects would have to think twice before offending them. Of course, generally speaking, no one from the four major sects would be so silly to become enemies with that distinguished guest. In Qinghao was afraid that Yuan Zhan would offend the distinguished guest as he hurriedly chased up. Yi Luo, why are you here? Chapter 25:34. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as she sighed helplessly. She really just wanted to attend the birthday banquet. I really didn't want to cause any trouble. At the very least, he didn't think of stirring up trouble before the birthday banquet ended. But why do these things always come knocking on my door one by one? Couldn't they just happily attend the birthday party? Yiqing Luo expressed her helplessness. Yi Luo, what do you want? He had chased her all the way until the sect master's birthday. What enmity do you have with me? Yuan Zhan rushed in front of Yiqing Luo and lowered his voice. Every word and sentence was squeezed out from the gaps between his teeth. Yiqing Luo picked her ears as she lazily raised her eyes and shot a glance at him. In just a few days, Yuan Zhan looked completely different from before. A few days ago, Yuan Zhan was still a high-spirited general, domineering, overbearing, and barbaric. But now, there was an unconcealable fatigue on his face. That dignified face was obviously thin. His eyes were cloudy and bloodshot. His originally tall and mighty body also seemed a little dispirited at this moment. Looks like General Zhan Wang's family had suffered quite a bit during this period of time when they were locked up in the palace. Yiqing Luo's attitude had triggered Yuan Zhan's hatred towards her. Yuan Zhan clenched his fists in anger. This is the Qingyue sect leader's birthday banquet, not a place for you to behave atrociously. On account of the sect master's birthday banquet, this general will not bicker with you. Now, scram for this general. Get out of this general's sight. He suppressed his anger. The muscles all over his body tightened. Yuan Zhan purposely lowered his voice. No matter how good the hearing of the people around them was, they couldn't hear it clearly. However, In Yinxiu, who was standing to the side, heard Yuan Zhan's words clearly. She could clearly feel how deep Yuan Zhan's hatred for Yiqing Luo was, so deep that he almost wanted to kill her. In Yinxiu more or less knew something about the warlord's mansion. It was just that he didn't know the reason. As for Yuan Zhan's purpose in coming to the Qinyu sect, he more or less understood. From the looks of it, the War King's mansion would be controlled by the royal family. It was related to Yiqing Luo. In Yinxiu couldn't help but size up Yiqing Luo. He secretly guessed the identity of this girl. Looking at Yuan Zhan's outburst of anger, he clenched his fist tightly, as though he was about to punch Yiqing Luo's delicate face. In Yinxiu cleared his throat and was about to dissuade Yuan Zhan. However, the girl's clear and sweet voice rang out leisurely. General Battle King's words are ridiculous. Who gave you the confidence to think that? I came to the Qinyu sect because of you? Yiqing Luo didn't intentionally suppress her voice. The surrounding people all heard Yiqing Luo's words clearly. Yuan Zhan's face turned green. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled indifferently. General Battle King, don't be so narcissistic and don't be so shameless. I don't even put your Battle King's manner in my eyes. Yuan Zhan's face was as black as charcoal. This slut, how dare she humiliate him in front of so many high-ranking officials and dignitaries? Stop you. I, I have no interest to waste time with you here. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as her evil and teasing gaze met Yuan Zhan's eyes. That pair of smiling eyes flashed. Yuan Zhan's eyes reflected that pair of long and narrow, evil, charming eyes. His heart suddenly trembled violently. Chapter 25:35. Obviously, when Yi Qing Luo and Yuan Zhan stood face to face, Yi Qing Luo didn't even reach Yuan Zhan's shoulder. Obviously, Yi Qing Luo raised her head and looked at Yuan Zhan in the eyes. But unfortunately, Yuan Zhan felt an indescribable pressure pressing heavily on his shoulder. That gaze was like an icy, cold, poisonous snake, entangling him bit by bit. He actually had a feeling that he couldn't breathe. How high was this slut's ability? How could she suppress his aura so easily? And as for the reason why I'm here, naturally has nothing to do with you, Battle King General. The smile in Yi Qing Luo's eyes deepened by several notches. Today is Qin Yuesek's matriarch's birthday. Other than to celebrate his birthday, what other reason would I have to stand here? Hearing Yi Qing Luo's reply, Yuan Zhan's face turned green and white. He knew clearly that Yi Qing Luo was doing this on purpose, intentionally to embarrass him in front of all the officials and dignitaries of the various continents, intentionally to ruin his reputation as the Battle King General. On purpose, Yuan Zhan clenched his fists tightly as he suppressed his anger. His entire body was trembling slightly. Yin Yanxio's eyes flickered slightly as he took a huge step forward and stood in front of Yi Qing Luo. His tall and sturdy body blocked Yi Qing Luo completely. Yuan Zhan was obviously stunned as his body turned extremely stiff. Battle King General. Yin Yanxio smiled slightly. This is a distinguished guest invited by Father. Today is Father's birthday banquet. I hope General Battle King can maintain a happy mood. Yuan Zhan's tightened arms bulged with muscles. The expression on his face kept on twisting. After some time, Yuan Zhan's tightly pursed lips revealed a stiff arc. To be able to attend the matriarch's birthday banquet, I'm naturally happy. That smile was even uglier than crying. Yin Yanxio pretended not to see his reluctance as he raised his hand and patted Yuan Zhan's shoulder lightly. Battle King General, I'll bring these distinguished guests to meet Father first. Yuan Zhan's breathing stagnated. Once he lost power, he was trampled by thousands. Since when did a junior dare to be so disrespectful to him? He suppressed the anger in his chest and moved away bit by bit. Make way for them. At this time, Yin Qinghao had already caught up. Seeing Yuan Zhan's expression, he hurriedly smiled and said, "So, General Battle King and Lady Yi are old friends. Thank you all for coming all the way here to attend my birthday banquet. Come, please in the hall. I have already arranged your seats." Yuan Zhan Jiang stood on the side, watching Yin Qinghao talking to Yi Luo in a friendly manner, as well as Yi Luo's mocking smile. He felt as if he had been slapped in the face. Almost subconsciously, he sneered. "That's right, Lady Yi and I are old acquaintances. However, I am very curious. What is Lady Ye's identity that the sect master admires you so much?" His words seemed as though he was curious about Yi Qing Luo's identity. However, his words were clearly overbearing. When the words came out of his mouth, Yuan Zhan was also taken aback, but he did not regret it. Chapter 25:36. General Ward King. Yin Yanxio frowned and shouted in a low voice. Just as he was about to stop Yuan Zhan's overbearing manner, Yi Qing Luo had already laughed out softly. Hearing General Battle King's tone, why does it have a sour taste? Could it be General Warlord is jealous of me? Are you jealous that a little girl like me is able to get acquainted with the leader of the 3,000 peach blossoms and gain the sect master's appreciation? Pucci, the surrounding people couldn't help but burst out laughing. The War King General was jealous of a 15-year-old girl? No matter how one listened to it, These words sounded exceptionally ridiculous. But when it was said by this young girl, he felt that what she said seemed very reasonable. General Zhang Wang's sour tone, no matter how one listened to it, it was filled with jealousy and indignation. You? What nonsense are you spouting? What do you have to make me jealous? Yuan Zhan gritted his teeth in anger. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes innocently. Oh, General Battle King's meaning is that you don't want to get acquainted with 3,000 peach blossoms and don't want to be on good terms with Sovereign? Yuan Zhan was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. That pair of malicious eyes couldn't wait to use his gaze to tear Yiqing Luo into pieces. Yi Luo, you're deliberately changing the topic. You don't want everyone to know your true identity, do you? Yuan Zhan took a deep breath and suppressed his anger as he stared at Yiqing Luo and said word by word, "You're from the West Wave Continent. On the first day you arrived at the North Wave Continent, you got into a conflict with my son, Yuan Quan. You poisoned Quan, and caused a ruckus in my warlord's mansion, and now you're in such a state." He paused and suddenly looked at a certain place. In a cold voice, he said, "This general's only son is poisoned and is bedridden. The doctors are unable to cure him. This general can only go to the Miao Gu family and plead with young Miss Miao to save him." I didn't expect that this woman's goal was not just the Warlord Manor. She borrowed the hands of the Warlord Manor to infect young Miss Miao with the poison. He was looking in the direction of the Miao tribe leader, Miao Yixiong. Everyone's gaze landed on Miao Yixiong at the same time. Miao Yixiong almost cursed. Damn that Yuan Zhan. How dare he say that his daughter was poisoned in front of so many people? He had tried so hard to hide it. He didn't want to affect Miao Rongrong's chances of becoming the Holy Maiden. If the Miao tribesmen knew that Miao Rongrong had been poisoned by an incurable poison, the tribesmen were terrified and believed that this was the order of the poison god to deny Miao Rongrong the right to be the Holy Virgin. Yuan Zhan actually dragged his Miao tribe into this at this time. Was he trying to destroy him and the Miao tribe? He was so angry that his face turned pale. However, in Yuan Zhan's eyes, he felt that Miao Yixiong was infuriated by Yiqing Luo's shamelessness, although he had been imprisoned by the royal family for the past few days. However, after so many years, his forces and informants had already spread all over the Northern Wave Continent. What he wanted to know, it was still a piece of cake. Yiqing Luo and the others trespassed into the Miao tribe to save someone, creating a huge ruckus in the Miao tribe, and even destroying the seal which the Miao tribe had been guarding for hundreds of years. Yuan Zhan had received the news long ago. Therefore, he had deliberately dragged Miao Yixiong out at this time. Presumably, Miao Yixiong hated Yiqing Luo to the core. If the two of them could work together and kill this bitch. Chapter 25:37. Yiqing Luo naturally didn't miss the sinister and complacent look in Yuan Zhan's eyes. She had more or less guessed Yuan Zhan's thoughts at this moment. Her pink lips rose slightly as she smiled at Miao Yixiong. "Oh, Miao Yixiong, I didn't know I was so hateful. Not only did I cause young master to be poisoned, but also eldest Miss Miao. I'm really amazing." There was a hint of a smile in her voice as she spoke. Miao Yixiong felt a chill down his spine. Obviously, it was a bright and radiant smile, but in his eyes, it was a summon from hell. "Miao Yixiong, this is Qinhua sect. Our brothers from all over the world are here. We must expose this vicious woman's true colors. Otherwise, next month, the Battle King's residence will be someone else." Yuan Zhan got anxious when he saw Miao Yixiong's silence. He must pull Miao Yixiong to his side. Moreover, Yuan Zhan had another thought in his mind. Yi Luo, that slut, an ordinary student. But Yin Qinghao gave her so much face and even looked so respectful. Could it be that Yi Luo and Yin Qinghao were in cahoots? He had been guessing the reason. The real culprit behind the scenes was actually Qinhua sect's sovereign Yin Qinghao. True colors. Yin Qinghao frowned slightly as his eyes locked tightly as he looked at Yuan Zhan. What does General Battle King mean by this? Yuan Zhan's gaze fell on Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong was suffocated by Yi Qing Luo's gaze. At this moment, Yuan Zhan was still pressing on. His face turned pale as he gritted his teeth. General Battle King, where did you hear this news from? Missy has no enmity with my Miao tribe, so why would she poison Rongrong? Yuan Zhan's expression changed drastically. You, Miao Yixiong, are you going to watch this slut mislead the masses and destroy the northern continent? General Battle King, you're the one who misleads the masses, right? Miao Yixiong's brows furrowed as he berated sternly. Would I use my daughter's life as a joke? If my daughter was poisoned, would she still attend the sovereign's birthday banquet today? As he spoke, he extended his hand behind him. Rongrong, come here. Let General Warlord take a good look at you. Tell your uncle Warlord, what poison have you been poisoned by? In the Miao Gu aristocrat clan's territory, a woman dressed in jade green, Miao, clothing leisurely walked out. Miao Rongrong's face was exquisite, and her smile was appropriate. Her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with a moist luster. She slowly walked to Miao Yixiong's side and bowed in Yuan Zhan's direction with the etiquette of a junior. Thank you for your concern, General Warlord. I've never been poisoned since the beginning. Perhaps you've misunderstood, General Warlord. Although Miao Rongrong's face was a little pale. However, he was in a healthy state and did not look like someone who had been poisoned. Yuan Zhan staggered backward, pointing at Miao Rongrong and Miao Yixiong in disbelief. A few days ago, Miao Rongrong was poisoned in the War King's residence. Looking at her, how could she not be poisoned? Why would the people of the Miao tribe speak up for that bitch Yi Luo? Could it be that Miao Yixiong did not hate Yi Luo for destroying the Miao tribe's seal? Looking at Yuan Zhan's dispirited and incomprehensible expression, Miao Yixiong's eyes widened. Chapter 25:38. Yuan Zhan was about to go crazy. A pair of malicious eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo viciously. Yi Qing Luo was fearless as she walked towards Yuan Zhan, one step after another. It was majestic and intimidating. Yuan Zhan, who had been through a lot of battles, actually felt a chill in his face, attacking his senses. Instinctively, he took a step back. However, Yi Qing Luo had already walked right in front of him. Did General Warlord say anything? Now, isn't it my turn to speak? Yi Qing Luo was all smiles as her tone was extremely gentle. In the eyes of others, Yi Qing Luo's action was merely a casual chat with Yuan Zhan. Only Yuan Zhan knew what he was feeling right now. The girl in front of him was like a demon from hell. She had appeared to claim his life. What are you trying to say? Are you trying to argue? Yuan Zhan tried to show his authority as a general, but his mind was filled with images of Yuan Kuang going crazy from being poisoned and Miao Rongrong lying on the bed. Inexplicably, his heart was filled with fear towards this young lady. General Battle King deliberately tried to belittle me and slander me. He even dragged the Miao tribe's patriarch along to slander me. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. Luckily, the Miao clan's leader is a righteous person and didn't collude with you. After she finished speaking, her gaze suddenly became sharp. You think I'm just an ordinary student? Then, as a War King general, why are you so painstakingly targeting a weak girl like me? It's fine if it's once or twice, but this is the sect leader's birthday banquet, yet you still insist on being so overbearing and pestering us endlessly. I really want to know, General Battle King, what is the meaning of this? Yuan Zhan's face turned red, and he stomped his feet in anger. He had never been questioned by a junior to the point of being speechless. He was a dignified War King general, the mighty War King of the Northern Wave continent who slaughtered in all directions. How could he suffer such humiliation? His face was red and his neck was thick. He choked and said angrily, Yi Luo, continue to twist words and force logic, continue to quibble. Today is the sect master's birthday banquet. I won't argue with you. We have plenty of time in the future. Yuan Zhan was not an idiot. The current situation was extremely disadvantageous to him. Hao was obviously trying to protect that bitch. It was not easy for him to get the chance to leave the palace. As long as Hao was willing to help, he would soon be able to return to the War King's mansion. No matter what, he couldn't miss this opportunity. Otherwise, the Battle King's mansion was really going to fall. There were many ways to deal with Yi Luo. There was no need for him to argue with Yi Luo on this occasion. Yuan Zhan had indeed thought things through. The choice he made was indeed the best one for him at the moment. However, if he wanted to pretend that nothing had happened, even if Yi Luo agreed, that would depend on whether her brothers would agree to it or not. Yuan Zhan clenched his fists, suppressed his anger, and prepared to return to his seat. Suddenly, a man's deep and steady voice shocked everyone present. Only in the future? As soon as this voice came out, the noisy crowd immediately quietened down. Everyone's gaze turned towards the direction of the voice. That seemingly ordinary carriage that could drive into the entrance of the main hall. The voice sounded like that of a young man in his mid-20s, but the majesty in his tone was intimidating. Who was it who was speaking? Yuan Zhan, who was about to leave, froze on the spot. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.